NUFC Early Night News with Gary DeJordy Yum Yum, Andrew Boki, Christina Cage, and Derek the Mighty Wind. Weekdays from 8 p.m. UK, 2 p.m. USA. NUFC Talk.
Good evening, one and all. Welcome to one and all in the chat, and obviously those on YouTube, those on DAB radio. Welcome along to the early part of the late show with myself, the Geordie Yam Yam. We've got the Mighty Win, we've got the Tina Tooney, and of course we've got Boki down there as well. The usual crew on the early part of the show. And like I say, if I can ask you to do three lovely things for us to go further as a channel, and that would be subscribe if you haven't already. Smash that like button because it certainly helps us get further as a channel. And obviously, if you want to get the notification when we come in live, but always live, never edited, ring the bell because that'll give you that 30-minute warning. And I also say that anybody, obviously, we have to, now we are broadcast live and wide, just keep it nice and PC in the chat because obviously we can't show anything on the screen that's got any swearing, so keep it clean, and we will do our best to obviously bring you a show that we can all have fun with and everything else. So let's I mean, like I say, what can I say about yesterday? And I'm going to start the show with my opening line, I suppose. Good evening and welcome back to the NUFC Talk, where Newcastle United apparently decided that if you're going to travel 5,000 miles, you may as well go and score 6 while you're there. Anthony Gordon just hit 4 in the Champions League knockout game. Pep Guardiola is eyeing up our right back like it's Black Friday at the Etihad. And Aston Villa are apparently fighting for us another keeper who doesn't even start for City. And somehow, we're still being told to stay humble. Humble? We've just turned Baku into a pre-season friendly. So let's begin tonight's show. I'm going to call...
It was a pre-season friendly because we never won any one of them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It was crazy the way it all set up. But I mean, I'm going to this segment is definitely called Baku the Net, if you like, with the 6-1 statement win. We have to think about where this game goes. I listened to you boys last night in the phone-in. Did a great job in the standing for Chris. And like I say, the lads in the phone-in, I must admit, Ashington twang always makes me smile. I was up in the College of Ashington when I was just as I left school. I had to go up to the college just to fill the space in while I was working in North Shields. And I must admit that the twang is so different, and I love to hear it. It's
grand, isn't it?
It's grand. I say more bloody scouse. Scouts. I'm going to say, it sounded more scouts. Newcastle, that's what I said. He sounded more scouts. 6-1 Karabag, biggest European away margin. First time 6 goals scored in a UEFA match in 149 games. Anthony Gordon became the first Magpie to score 4 in a European tie. Is this a psychological shift, ladies and gentlemen? 9 days ago, we had a wobble. Now, 11 goals in 3 away matches. The way I want to approach this, if we can, is we all doubted, and me being one of those areas of doubt, if you like, where I just didn't see Anthony Gordon through the middle. We started the season with him through the middle, and we didn't look like we could hit a barn door from 5 yards. And now all of a sudden, and again, I don't know whether it's European competition, obviously different style, a little bit more space for you to run at the defenders. And I must admit, the press from our boys in that first few minutes were outstanding. And it totally rattled Karabag. So I want to ask you, first of all, Mighty, about, because you're a big admirer of Anthony Gordon's pressing from that number 9 role. Do you think that is obviously where Newcastle thrive, when he's really pushing the buttons of the goalkeeper? I mean, he's the trigger, isn't he? And that's where everybody else forces them into a corner And then obviously the one thing from what I liked yesterday, and we've seen it now on multiple occasions, is winning that second ball when they clear. But it all comes from his pressing. And I want to start with that because I know you've been singing his praises for a long time.
Yeah, well, bear in mind, it hasn't just coincided with Gordon going up top. It has coincided with Woltemade being given a role which isn't number 9. And he's had 3 excellent games, the last three away games, 3 wins, progress in 3 competitions. Crisis, what crisis is what I say. And there's a load of social media outcry about the penalty, about wasting Woltemade in midfield when everybody in their granny knows he's a centre forward, apparently. All I'll say is it's about the team. Look at the results that the team's getting. Look at the performances that the team are getting. Better than most stuff we've seen this season, with Woltemade playing in that much deeper role. And I'm saying, what is the problem? Why is everybody getting on a high horse? And I'm sure Borky's going to tell us.
Well, what's your thoughts then, mate?
Strange enough, I kind of agree with Win. I think Baltimore he's got a lot more possession since he's got dropped back. He's not playing as a central midfielder, as people have been saying. He's playing as a number 10, slightly forward of that. But he's getting a touch of the ball. He's setting things up. He's holding the ball up. He's finding his teammates. You know, they found the perfect role for him. I think sometimes we'll look at injuries as negatives. And, you think, oh, God, we've lost our best players. But this time around, I think it's kind of forced Eddie's hand a little bit. And, we're beginning to find new formations that we're playing, different styles of play, and it's working out for us. So I've got no problem with Baltimore playing it. And to be honest, I think he probably feels more comfortable there. I think sometimes he looks a forlorn figure when he's up front as himself as a number 9, whereas that role, he's constantly involved in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, it's certainly, from what we've seen over the last couple of games, it's not only just bringing other players into the game, it becomes very difficult to mark. And I think that's the difference. He's finding space. And again, you look at the likes of Dan Burn yesterday with that absolutely fantastic ball through the middle. Now, listen, people will always say,
"Oh man,
yeah, there you go." I had to bring that one up. Exactly, Dan Beckenbauer. Again, it's just pockets of space because of movement from players in and around midfield, and that's inclusive of Woltemade. But Tina, obviously, a little bit of, I say it's not history because Anthony Gordon has scored 4 goals in the first half of the Champions League playoff against Karabag. He's only the second player in competition's history to do so, alongside Luis Adriano. Do you think? Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about Anthony Gordon, his drop off of form. Obviously, head turned with links to other teams, and again, we've now seen there's another link to Liverpool again now. And I'm sure the lads will go into a lot more detail when it comes to news later on in the show. Do you think this form and this turning of a corner now will lift Anthony Gordon's Premier League run now? Because at the end of the day, Wissa's got a knock. We're not sure whether he will be back fit for the Manchester City game. Do you think Eddie Howe now carries on with Anthony Gordon against Manchester City? And do you think he can thrive in the Premier League the same as he's playing in the Champions League?
If you're asking me... Oh, sorry, Tina, go on.
Oh, sorry, I thought he had said Tina.
Yeah, Chris likes to. Yeah, Win likes to be called Tina at the weekend, but it's still Thursday.
Right. No, it's this Tina Win. It's this one. It's just a Thursday.
All right. Okay. Thank you for
But
correcting me.
but no, I mean, all I was going to say on that, obviously, I mean, 4 goals, fantastic in any game, especially in a first half. 2 of them were from the penalty spot. And his penalties have been spot on all season. I don't think anybody's had an issue with that. There has been a lot of talk about whether he's played like somebody who was, discontent or disillusioned with the club. But I mean, Eddie has stuck by him, played him in his preferred role rather than putting him onto the right, and now playing him through the centre. I mean, Woltemade behind a striker seems to be working. Obviously, when Bruno comes back, that might change, and we might see Woltemade pushed a bit further forward. But I don't see any reason why we wouldn't continue with Anthony Gordon as our centre forward, if you want. I don't think it's a natural position for him. But he's got pace. He's good at pressing. He's probably our best player for pressing, which I'm sure would have been linked to what Win was about to say. But yeah, I mean, I don't think he's a long term solution at centre forward. But right now, with the way that we've been playing in that formation and with the limited options that we've got, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't go with him there. And then if he is just playing fantastically to try to force a move, which I don't believe, but even if he was doing that, we might as well take advantage of that form and use it to propel ourselves up the league. And if his goal scoring form in the Champions League had only been against Karabakh, I could understand people saying, "Oh, well, we've turned Karabakh over. We've had them kind of on the ropes, and they've kind of maybe given up before we got to the end of the game." Then I could see that. But with the fact that he's every Champions League game we've played, he's certainly shone definitely better than he was doing in the Premier League for us. So yeah, I mean, I hope that now that the rest of the teams also are starting to play a lot more positively and we're starting to get a few shining performances in other areas of the pitch, I would love to see him then carry that form on into the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, good response, and that to me, I mean, listen, there's going to be setbacks, and we know, with the change in formation, it doesn't always suit the tactical setup, right? But for what I saw from minute 3, if you like, the tactical aggression to win that ball back as higher up the field as we can, we virtually went back to the 22-23 season, where it was full-on press. It was every man to a man doing a job. There was no outball for Karabakh at all. And again, when you look back at their results in the Champions League, that's the first time, it's the first time that I believe, having looked at their history, that they have actually been beaten at home. Not just beaten at home, but beaten so badly at home in front of their own fans. It was an interesting watch from the 3rd minute on how it's like we gave them a couple of minutes just to see how they were playing. It didn't really feel as though any there was going to be a lot going on, and then whack! It was like I say, well, right, you've had your 3 minutes, now I'm after you, and they hunted in packs. Is that tactical aggression that we saw then? Is that something that we need to start seeing in the Premier League? Because it proves with the change of formation, as Boki said, Win said, and Tina said, it happens and it works really well. Can we not show that intensity in the Premier League, or do you think the Premier League is a step above?
Well, 2 of the games that Gordon shone in with his press have been against Premier League opposition, Spurs and Villa. And people will argue about how poor Spurs were, the same way they're arguing about how poor Karabakh were. But nobody's telling me Aston Villa's poor. They're sitting 3rd in the league, and everybody's singing their praises and singing them praises. And it worked against them too. And we could have had a lot more against Villa as well than we did do. But what we're doing, as well as the press, we're winning the ball back in midfield, and we're coming away with the ball in midfield, which has been our problem all season. And on top of that, we're shooting. Murphy again last night was shooting from the edge of the box.
Yeah, 25
do
yarder.
disagree with Win here. Can I pick up on this one?
Yeah, go.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Tottenham were a poor team. When we talk about teams in crisis, and people talked about Newcastle being in crisis, we were never in a crisis. Tottenham are in a crisis. They are poor and don't look to have any sort of outlets to get better. So that was a reason why we won that game as well. Aston Villa, technically, we were losing until they lost a man. And then obviously we got back into the game. So, we'll have to take that into account. And Karabag were a poor team. Let's not be dishonest. You don't go out and smash a Champions League team 6-1 unless they're a poor team. So I don't want to put it down on the results because they've been brilliant results. But let's not again get too high when we're winning or too low when we're losing. Let's look at it honestly. So yes, we've won 3 away games, absolutely brilliant. But in regards to that, we've played 2 poor teams and played a team against 10 men. So there have been circumstances
Before
there,
Villa went out,
and high press, and with the high press point, I don't think you can do that again. Like if we try to high press against Man City at the weekend, they're just going to rip us apart. They really will. So yes, the high press works in certain games, and I'd encourage it to play that in certain games. But in other games, you do sometimes have to build with a solid foundation, and then counterattack football.
well, going with a solid foundation against City, we've proven we can't do that because they beat with 5-1 over 2 legs.
Yeah,
So
I just think.
why not try something different?
Well,
I just think.
we beat them 2-1 at home.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that was when we had both our full-backs and both our strikers fit.
I think that the thing for me is the fact that if you allow any team that time on the ball, that possession, especially the likes of Man City, and the one thing that I find us really guilty of is the way we drop off at certain times, playing again, showing for me too much respect to a classic, counter-attacking opposition, and again you go try and limit the mistakes that you do, but if you can show half of that animal instinct, if you like, to go and win the ball, no team is comfortable. We saw that with PSG, with the likes of Mbappe, and Dembele, and all those class players at PSG when we beat them 4-1 at St James's Park, when it was full on press. Sometimes you don't give players of quality time to think. Players of quality can't hurt you when they haven't got time to think and pass a ball. Sometimes you can just do that. And like I say, we are going to do a deep dive. I say a deep dive, but we are going to talk a little bit more about Manchester City later on in this show. But for me, the one thing that I've noticed is the fact that you just mentioned there, Karabag were a poor side. If I'm absolutely 100% honest with you, I think we made them look a poor side. The same as a lot of teams have done against when we've played them in the Premier League. We've dropped to a level. I just don't think they could handle. They've had some really great results this season in the Champions League. 2-2 against Chelsea over there. At home, they're a formidable force. It just seemed on the night they just couldn't handle that press. And I think that was the difference between the teams that they've played previously and got a result against compared to a team that was just willing to take no chances, give them no opportunities to break. Second half was a totally different style of football. It was just trying to get the best out of a winning position already. You've done the hard work in the first half, and it was about game management in the second half. You come out drawing 1-1. And I must admit, I wasn't enamoured with what Pope did, as he was really not done. He didn't do a great deal all through the match because he wasn't needed to. But again, when you need him at the, he shouldn't be beaten at that near post like he was. It was a really poor performance from my point of view. If you look then, it's the sixth European hat-trick in club history after Rob Lee, Andy Cole, Tino Asprilla, Alan Shearer did it twice. Gordon now on 10 Champions League goals this season, second only to Kylian Mbappe. So let's just stick with Anthony Gordon just for a second, because we've been struggling with goals with the two attackers that have played up top, not really hitting the high notes. So do you think Anthony Gordon is Eddie Howe's number 9 issue solved without being a recognised number 9?
No, I don't think it is at all. I think we need a number 9, but we need a number 9 who's a lot more mobile. When we saw the Villa lineup, and I saw Asula up front, I thought, that's a good sign, because he will be much harder to mark, and he was much harder to mark than what Woltemade is, just with his movement. And Gordon is the same. He doesn't stand still, but for 10 seconds. So if two defenders are trying to go with him, as they do with Woltemade, because they can do, that creates space then for everybody else to come in. You cited the PSG game there. After 20 minutes against PSV, we thought we were going to get absolutely hammered. But for the next 70 minutes, we were all over them. Because again, we adopted a higher press against PSG, and got our reward. Bogey's saying we only beat Villa after they had a man sent off. But we were only behind because of the ineptitude of the referee at the time. We should have been three up before they scored. So I'm not.
No. Let's just pull you up on that. You can't say that. We could have. You're right, but we weren't. You can only look at facts. I could be a millionaire if I won the lottery. You can't sit there and say could have, would have, should have. All you can do is what was happening at that point and go on the facts. And the facts were we were losing until Aston Villa went down to 10 men.
Yeah, but we should have been winning. We're still playing well.
But that's not my point. Who won the game, Tina? What I'm saying is, I'm making points that there's been circumstances in each game of why we won. I'm not saying we're in a bad run. I'm saying it's great. It's smashing what we're on. But let's be honest, when we're analysing it, we played a very poor Tottenham team. I don't think anybody can say that that's wrong. We played Aston Villa and we were losing until they went down to 10 men. And Karabakh, as Gary says, they're not a bad team, but they're certainly not a champion. If I'm honest, the Champions League's being played down with teams like that getting through to this sort of stage.
But Chelsea, one of the big six,
let's be honest.
2-2 draw against them.
But Liverpool beat them 6-0.
Yeah, at home.
And I'm going to say that was at Anfield. There's a bit of a difference.
I'm not being down, but you have to be honest. You can't just sit there and say everything's rosy in the garden. So you have to be honest about these things.
Let's be honest about this then. So Aston Villa, fair enough, got a player sent off. They're a top 3 side in the Premier League. Tottenham are a final 16 team in Champions League, and I get that they are a poor side this season who are now definitely going through some sort of managerial crisis. But we've played worse against worse teams. I mean, we struggled badly in the game against Wolves. I wouldn't say Wolves are a better team than Tottenham right now, even with what Tottenham are going through, and the league position kind of reflects that. So although Tottenham aren't a great side, I mean, here's the thing, the Premier League is a very, very tough league with a lot of great teams, and in any competition, you've got to beat the opponent in front of you. It's all very well saying, oh, look, these are an easy team to beat. You've got to go out there and you've got to beat them. In a sport, you've got to show up, you've got to complete your passes, you've got to take your chances, you've got to create your chances, you've got to stop the opposition from scoring. If teams like Tottenham had done nothing against us, then that's fair enough. And Aston Villa, yeah, they had 10 men, but then we ran riot on that 10-man team, and that's not a natural thing that happens. There's been many a time that I can remember us even going down to 10 men and coming out and playing better and being galvanized because of that. So although it does definitely give us the advantage in the rest of that game, to say that we only won because of that, I'd personally wouldn't accept. And the overall point of this is, even if it is easy attempts, like if you've ever done like a competition, like a competition that involves tournaments, whether that would be chess, football, video games, whatever you do that you can compete in, you will sometimes come up against lower oppositions, and you have to beat those lower oppositions. And sometimes you just kind of get your eye in those contests. You get a little bit of momentum, and we have amazing momentum now, where we've scored 11 goals in 3 away games. We've got 3 away victories on the bounce, one of which we travelled halfway across the world for. I mean, that can only build momentum and definitely build confidence. We've kind of got our muscle memory in there. We're starting to complete passes. We're starting, and that's going to carry over. A bad performance can lead to a bad performance, that can lead to a capitulated season. But a good performance can lead to a stronger performance, which can lead to a great performance, which then means that maybe this time when we do come up against the Manchester City, instead of showing them respect, because I think that's the complete wrong thing to do against the Manchester City, because yeah, they can turn us over if we sit there and let them play like world-class champions. But if you don't give them that respect, if you give them an absolute torrid time, if you do give them a bit of a press, if you do, give them a little clip around the heels, if you do make it a little bit dirty, if you do try to play a game against them, give them a shock. Everybody sits there and lets Manchester City play well against them. It's kind of the done thing. They're one of the best teams in the world. But if we can take the momentum that we've built over the last 3 games and then turn that into just having enough confidence to just be like, you know what it is? I'm going to try my luck with this big dog. I'd honestly think Manchester City might struggle against us. It might kind of catch them off guard, and then we'd be talking 3 games away from home that we've won, and a good result against Manchester City. And I would, to quote the king himself, love it if we came into the after show on Saturday and you could see anything negative about us beating Manchester City.
Yeah, well, there you go.
The thing is with that, just to quickly come on back on it, Gary, I'll be quick with this point, is in regards to that, I think Manchester City is the barometer. So you guys are sitting here saying everything's rosy in the garden now, Eddie Howe's a king, nothing can go wrong, we're going to go on and be brilliant at everything. All I'm saying is put this into reality of where we were after the Brentford game. We're all on here as low as a snake's belly. Yes, we went on and had 3 great results. I'm not saying there weren't great results, and I'm not saying we've been poor. What I'm saying is, look at the teams that we've been playing in regards to that. I'm not going to repeat the point, but there's been mitigating circumstances in each game to why we've won. So, yes, be happy, be over the moon that we've won, and be, hope that there is momentum building, but don't build us up to the point now that we're a perfect team, because we're certainly not.
I don't know whether everybody said, and I wouldn't say that Manchester City is a barometer. Again, I think that to me is that next level, and I don't think Newcastle are there yet. And the one thing I wanted to show you guys, though, is what was said post game, and this was a talk post game about the potential of facing Newcastle in the next round of the Champions League. I know there's still Karabag at home to play, but I think unfortunately now we all realise that we are through, unless something serious happens. So let's just listen to what these guys have to say.
I like what he's done with this side, right? And I just blows my mind when I hear that a guy like him's under pressure.
And that's a great point. That's going to be a bit I alluded to. If you're any other team now, whether you're Bayern or whoever, you don't want to face Newcastle. They're a team you want to avoid. Even though they'll fancy themselves to beat them, it's like, they're good at set pieces. They're organised. Their manager knows how to win competitions. He did it last year with the Carabao. That midfield's really strong. We got pace. There's a lot of things as an opposition coach, even though you may feel we got a better team, so they can cause us a lot of problems. And to Eddie Howe, the element of that, to me, I think he should have been in the conversation for the next England manager, personally. But it's a great moment for him now to have this team and to show he can rebuild. Because remember as well, even though they've got the Saudi money there, they're under PSR regulations all the time. But he has to sell to keep changing and reinventing himself, and he keeps delivering this type of performance. So a team you don't want to play against in the knockouts, 100%.
Yeah, interesting. You go along with that?
Absolutely go along with that.
I mean,
none of the top, I mean, we know who we've got. That's a bit of a. I don't know if I like the bracket system that they use now. Where I quite like the idea of a random draw, but of course it's UEFA for protecting the big clubs yet again. But I think what the first guy said was the key thing. How can he possibly be under pressure? It's madness. But anyway,
hang on. How's it? No. How's it madness? You make that point just willy nilly. It's not madness. It's fact because as they're not Newcastle United fans and they haven't had to sit and watch some of the rubbish we've had to watch this season. They haven't had to sit and watch a manager who was unable to make substitutions at the right time. They haven't had to sit and watch a manager who's picked his favourite players at times. They haven't had to sit and watch absolutely diabolical decisions being made by the manager at times. Just because we've won 3 away games in a row, don't turn this into Eddie's perfect. He's certainly not. Part of the reason why we've changed is down to the fact that his hands have been forced. You can't tell me if he'd went into this game with all fit players, he'd have played that team or that formation. He's played it through necessity, not through trying to develop the team.
Being able to adapt to your situation.
He's definitely been reluctant because of all of the reasons that have been given. Woltemade as a centre forward. He's definitely been reluctant, I think, to play where he thinks his best position is, and he's been forced into saying, well, tough Eddie, you're going to have to do it. Play him where you think he's best, and he's put him where he thinks it's best, and look at the results we're getting.
But that's because his hand's been forced. He would not have done this change of formation. You can't tell me if Bruno, Joe Linton, and Tonali were fit, we wouldn't still be playing that 3 in midfield. We would. You can't tell me that if Woltemade wouldn't be up front. He wants Gordon back on the left, let's face it. He wants Alanga on the right. You can't tell us that he wouldn't change things up. The only
when did Eddie tell you this?
No, the only reason he's changed things up is because his hands have been forced.
No, so how do you know that? Is there like an alternative?
Because the rest of the season, look at before this point. Look at the rest of the season. He didn't change anything until we got the injuries. He did not change a thing until we got into an injury crisis, and he's had to.
And he's adapted well.
I mean, like I said, I'm not certainly here to say that one's wrong, one's right. I just think sometimes, like I say, you do have to change if you forced to, and some say even if we had literally 9 players with 1 legs, he'd still play a 4-3-3 somehow.
What I say is, with all this horrible football that we've been watching, etc., all season.
Well, in my personal view, I don't think he'd have changed at all unless we'd had this injury crisis.
Right, so
he's proven it at the start of the season that he didn't want to change things around, and the only reason he's done that is because his hands have been absolutely forced into doing it.
So we're saying we would have been stuck with the same old Eddie, that same old Eddie, which had us in the last 16 of the Champions League, in the next round of the FA Cup, into the semi-final of the Carabao Cup, 3 points off Champions League. That same Eddie. That's what we would have been stuck with.
There's an argument.
But no. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we've had a terrible start to the season. We can't sit here and be naive about what's happening.
Saying, how terrible is terrible?
Well, terrible
3
is
points off the Champions League. We were in the semi-final of the Carabao Cup.
Not 3 points off the Champions League. We are not 3 points off the Champions League. We're 10 points off the Champions League.
I was going to say, that seems a far cry, if I'm honest with you, in a minute.
You sit here and you make up facts. Yes, we have had a bad season. We're not as far in the Carabao Cup as we were. Yes, we've got through in the FA Cup, but we're miles further down the Premier League than we were. Let's not sit here and paint out a rosy picture.
We're 6 points, aren't we, at the minute from European, and to be fair, Champions League is 8 points. It's 6 points might win because 6 is European, unless you go into the 8th, which is what we're saying. There could be, depending on the cup runs and everything else, and who wins the cups. There could be up to potentially 9 places, and you're right. Then we are literally on the doorstep. But I keep saying, I don't want to rely on other teams to get us through. Like
all I'm saying is, where does anybody expect us to be?
Well,
again, the as we were last season.
Well,
to be progressing, we spent all that money, which we'll not go into, but we spent all that money. You want to progress. You want to progress as a club.
Of course.
Where did we finish in the Champions League last season?
Well, he didn't win the Champions League last season.
I was going to say we weren't there last season.
So we're doing a bit better in that competition this season.
Well, 100%. You can't do any worse than not qualifying.
We're doing all of that despite having European competition, which we didn't have last season.
But that's where we are. It's like I said, you're never going to be able to cover, as Chris always says, cover the sun with one finger, and please everybody. And like I said, look at Arteta, Arsenal top of the league, right? They go and get a draw at Molineux last night, and they all want him out. That is where we are. That is football today. There is no fan, there is nobody on a level playing field today. Whether you look at through social media, whether you talk, to your mates. I've spent the day in me Castle shirt, and I had an Arsenal fan come and give me an earache while I was in Milton Keynes about what they did last night, and I ain't interested. I said to him, mate, I don't care whether you keep your sack Arteta tomorrow or keep him. I ain't interested in what happens at Arsenal. And then he was trying to talk about Eddie and everything else. And you try and be polite because all he wants is an argument. And that is all he was trying to do. And that's what you're going to get today. Fans are fickle. And it doesn't matter whether you win the league and don't qualify for Champions League the year after, you are a has-been. That is where we are. That is the level playing field now. So like I said, you can have you can have it on one hand. I believe, and I'm happy. Like I said, I'm not Eddie in or Eddie out, but I'm happy where Newcastle are. We are achieving things that I've not seen at Newcastle for a very long time. So for me, I'm happy. Doesn't mean that everybody else should be. Let's have a look at some of the chat because, like I say, we could be talking about this.
Well, we've got Martin on from the Mancunian. We're saying it's a must-win for us.
Well, it is now. They've dropped points.
And with that comes pressure.
Absolutely.
That Arsenal result last night has given a chink of daylight to Man City, a bigger chink than what they already had. So they are going to be desperate. They're going to be on tenterhooks. They're going to be wanting to, ripe for the taking, I say. Ripe
Absolutely.
For the taking.
Kenny W saying here, Crisis wins coming back to earth with a bang, 21:30 Saturday night.
Well,
there
let's
you go.
see.
Quiddy66, sometimes when we break away, there were 4 or 5 plays in the box, and Big Nick was still on the halfway line. Far too deep, Quiddy saying. Now, obviously, tactics.
Far too deep when we scored 6, huh?
Yeah, that's what I said. Tactics, sometimes you're allowing then players, and that's what I said. It looked more like a 4-1-4-1 at times because of the way the shape was built. And what you got then was Big Nick coming back with Tonali to allow the lads to progress forward. And you're right, there were so many shirts in the box, something that I haven't seen all season and been asking for. And the other thing is you had Big Nick, and again, if you question their goal was offside, it was unfortunately Big Nick as a centre-half, actually on that defensive mode. So he's certainly working hard, and that's something, you can't deny. Woltemade is absolutely grafting for the team. Shamrock, he's saying, if Gordon scored the winning penalty in the Champions League final for Newcastle, no one would care. And I'm sure that is also true. Kim Cam, they were not a bad team overnight. They had excellent results against European sides. We just played very well. The whole team was wealthy. Animal Lecter, he missed 2 one-on-ones with the keeper. He scored 2 penalties, which no pro footballer should miss. Woltemade was sick after that game. He dismayed. He was bought as a striker. He's not happy.
I don't know how you know. I don't know how you know he's not happy. Animal Lecter.
Well, look, I've seen so many pictures where people are saying he's not happy, and all I'm saying is he's smiling. I mean, I don't know what that tells you. He's either got wind, or there's somebody, he's just found a tenner. If something happened. Boki, we were still a better team against Villa. Don't be disingenuous. Villa scored an offside goal, and the ref was a disgrace. Get it right, says Shamrock. Animal actor in again. If Trippier had to get involved, it shows how unhappy the team are with Big Ed Gordon. Eddie's frightened of him. You watch against City, he'll be crap again. Now, that was an interesting one because obviously there's the Trippier and Anthony Gordon did the post-match press coming together. And he says at the time, I was thinking more about the team. And again, we questioned it during the live commentary, didn't we? Is this the leadership group trying to make an even platform, if you like, an even playing field by spreading the love and giving everybody opportunity? And then even he said, the gaffer had highlighted it was his job to take the penalties. All Kieran Trippier was doing was trying to share the load and make everybody get involved. And I think it's sometimes, you don't have to score goals. And it's like defenders. Defenders, if they keep a clean sheet, it's like goalkeepers, I suppose. Keep a clean sheet, that's like scoring a goal for them. That's how they get, praised. You don't see many midfielders score lots of goals. So sometimes if a job has been tasked to one player, surely it's up to that one player then to say, you know what, I've got my hat-trick. Here we go. And again, why not be selfish and go for the golden boot? I have no issues in him scoring the fourth penalty, the fourth goal.
Gary, can I just pick up on that point in regards to that? I completely agree with you. Gordon was in the right in my view. If you're on a hot streak and you're the penalty taker, you should just go, no, look, and you want to see that from your players. You want them to have the confidence, have the balls to, say, this is mine, I'm taking it. I'm not arguing about it. I'm a penalty taker and I want to, to be that person. What I do think is Trippier's not a young player and he's a very, very experienced player, in which case he's the captain. Why the hell do that on the way off the pitch? Wait till you get in the dressing room, and if you've got an issue with the player, have a go in the dressing room so that the world doesn't see. Him going off like that, leaving the pitch as a senior pro, in my view, is the terrible. It's a terrible reaction. He should have waited until they got in the dressing room, and any argument should be done. You don't do your dirty linen in public, as the whole saying, and so he should have waited.
And to be fair, they did say afterwards, that was just me being hot-headed. There was nothing in it. My best mates, there's not an issue. I mean, they cuddled straight after the final whistle. I mean, you could see it was just that little bit where he come to the penalty spot and said, listen, can we give, I don't know whether it was Big Nick who's going to be lined up for the next penalty. It may have been. Apparently, Willock was inquiring whether he could take one. There was a number of volunteers when the pressure's off type of thing to take one. And it's exactly the same when the captain stood up the other week, wasn't it? When, we got Nick Woltemade on the field of play, but Bruno said, no, I'm taking responsibility as the team captain. And I think, sometimes it may not always address the situation if there is a slight concern by the player about his role within the squad. And that will only get better mentally if the results go. And trust me, isn't it funny how you hear of all this rubbish, all these rumours of players being unhappy, players want out, when the results aren't with you? Because that is, look at Tonali being touted by his agent. Yeah, Tonali was happy. He's got no. Again, I'm saying he's happy because that's what we told. He's happy. I have no other information.
Well,
but again, when results
you've got
aren't
the evidence
going for
your eyes when he scores and goes running straight over to the lane, and him and Howe are hugging.
Yeah. And apparently that was a pat on the back for saying, thanks for trusting me type of situation. Let's have a few more of these before we move on to the next sector then. Why Woltemade hadn't scored is because we've got two greedy wingers that want the glory for themselves. How many times can we square the ball and choose to shoot and miss? Well, they say you don't take a shot.
More connected crosses than any other team.
And well, that is the problem, isn't it? We have seen when we've crossed the ball, we sometimes just don't score from those crosses. As you said, we're top of the league in most of them. Even in Falk's end of the day, a win does us no harm with City on Saturday, says Brian Quinn. Totally agree. The mag goes, if we got to City, we will be smacked into reality so hard, we won't know what's hit us. Relax, man. And obviously, you've seen
We'll have
Mancunian
words
way.
later on.
I'm sure you will. So, Boki, do you want to stay as low as a snake's belly? Nobody will be expecting us to win at City on Saturday, and nobody is saying we're perfect.
Some of us are expecting to win on Saturday.
Oh,
Can I just ask who's in charge of that star in the chat tonight? Because there has been some things I've went through that have actually agreed with us, and not a single one of those has come up.
Well, I'm waiting to put one of them up.
All right, go on, then I'll let you carry on.
we haven't finished yet.
Eddie has been forced to change. A lot of the fans that have been criticising him and wanting 4-2-3-1 for months, and now he's done it. It's all down to Eddie, and we've been calling for it for months. But we have another one who says, this is Brian again, that's what a good manager does, adapt and change. Eddie has been successful at doing that. The results show that, surely.
Yeah, there's this one here, Burn the Heretic. You put that one back up. How always shows too much respect away at against City. I expect nothing else for the weekend but a loss. Totally agree with that one as well. Travoy, Boki, you're correct with the fact a lot of fans being shouted out for 4-2-3-1, and now Eddie finally doing it and we're winning games. So you see, patience, lad, patience.
I disagree with that. Not the end, just the bit where it said Borky was correct. just to bring it back down a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. What forced him to change up front last night? Because we're so injured, and he didn't have to move Gordon from left. He did.
The thing I was going to say about Travoy's comment about the 4-2-3-1, yeah, everybody's been crying about 4-2-3-1. Who would that one have been?
Woltemade or Wissa.
Well, there you go. And that's not what's worked. What's worked is not putting Woltemade as the one, but putting him as part of the three and putting Gordon as the one.
But he hasn't given Woltemade the chance in that type of formation very often. You know, you can't call the lad out by saying that when he's never been played in that formation. How many times, Win?
Well, can I just ask you,
how many times have we played that formation? 4-3-2-1.
Yeah, hold on, right there, because we're surmising this though, Boki, and I'm saying we
can say what team we're playing.
No. Wait. You haven't heard what I'm going to say because post presser, and I unfortunately hadn't got time to clip it, and I'm sure if I had, I would have done it. I've listened to it, but I was obviously typing out my notes for tonight. And what he said was it was a 4-3-3 because Woltemade was a midfielder. But he played, instead of going a square midfield, he played him in a diamond or the top end of a triangle. So that to me is a 4-2-3-1, by the way. But in Eddie's eyes, it's still a 4-3-3. And that's what I'm saying. You know, like I said, there may not have been much of adjustment regarding Eddie Howe's mentality regarding the formation, but obviously playing tactics was totally different. And again, it's all pie in the sky. What else was there? I did see something else. There we go. But if we had no injuries, we could be higher, says Shamrock. Right. And I think, like I said, we've got 7 definitely out against Manchester City. And I've heard there's 6 doubters because there's a couple come off with knocks.
Well, I'm one of those.
Yeah, there is that. Let's go on to the section 2 then. I mean, crikey, that's taken 50 minutes just to talk about section 1. Again, I'm not going to hover over this because I'm sure the lads will have a deep dive into it. Trafford now has been, eyed up by Aston Villa in this Manchester City goalkeeping.
The bidding war.
The bidding war starts, exactly. Reportedly prefers Aston Villa over Newcastle. Which is obviously, for me, quite a slight sting in the tail. And this all comes, I believe, with Mitchell. Paul Mitchell not apparently doing the best things with his agents. So it seems very much as though Trafford wants to move back. But like I say, I'm not going to delve into this. There's far too much for us to talk about. And again, I want to talk more about Manchester City. But do you think, like you just said there, Win, is this just going to develop now into a bidding war? I mean, if you think about it, City signed Trafford, re-signing because that was part of their contract. They could do. They were looking for another keeper. Then they go out and sign Donnarumma. Obviously, Trafford then reduced to just cup games. He's now frustrated and starting to air his views in public. Is it a development miscalculation by him and the club? Because did Manchester City see him as a bigger fish in the pool at that time? Or did you just think they've allowed or stopped Newcastle's development team in that process? Because at the end of the day, we all know the bigger teams also have to try and stop. As we've seen with the likes of Liverpool, they've come in and took the cream off the crop when we were there before them. Manchester United have done the same. Lots of teams in the same pool, bigger names at times, may not be bigger teams anymore, but bigger names by far with a bigger wage bill. Is that something that you think Manchester City have done regarding Trafford, just to stop his development going through?
I don't necessarily think that's what Manchester City did, but it'll be interesting to see. And I don't know where I would stand on it, to be fair. If it were to develop into a bidding war between us and Aston Villa, would you be inclined to be involved in that, or would you not?
Well, I'd walk away now.
I think we had a price that we were prepared to pay Burnley, and I wouldn't be going above that.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously proves that Martinez it is probably his last season at Villa, and now they're throwing
getting Martinez. I tell you.
Well, there you go. I mean, will Martinez go to Saudi? And I think that's where he's heading. If I'm honest with you, I think he's going for a bumper payoff. But I mean, for me, this should be a signal for Newcastle to move on. It's certainly a smokescreen, and again, to me, there's far too much time, as we've seen over the last two seasons, that we've spent talking to Trafford, trying to get a deal done, and for whatever reason, Newcastle just haven't come up trumps with a price. Because as we've heard before, I think it was Kev who mentioned it before in a previous show. If we'd have gone there when we had the opportunity,
I think it was Luke
and
Edwards.
put the money down. Oh, well, Luke Edwards, yeah, and said, this is your money. There you go. I think Trafford would have come. I don't think there was any issues regarding that.
I'll be honest on this one, Gary.
What's your thoughts then on? Go on, then. I was going to ask you what's your thoughts. Should Newcastle enter the Trafford race?
Definitely not. If we have got something in the contract with Ramsdale in regards to getting them for £16 million at the end of the season, neither those keepers are perfect. We know that, but I think we're saying, in my personal view, you're saying Ramsdale, and we've got bigger fish to fry this transfer window than keepers. You can rely on those two to a point. So in my view, you get them two in, you get then the rest of your business done. So you're not worrying about keepers at that point. If we go into the season with Pope and Ramsdale, it's not a disaster. But you're going to have be signing at least three defenders. You're probably looking at at least one midfielder, a winger, and potentially another striker. So, go in and do your other business. If we get to the end of the window and there's then a chance that we're bringing a better keeper in, then great. But, just don't go into like we did last transfer window and be trying to put all your do all your business, towards the end. Just get that position sorted, as I say. Paying £20 million in total, including the loan fee for Ramsdale, to me is just a no-brainer. You just do that, and as I say, concentrate on the other positions then. If we have a chance to do something, then do it. But for now, just don't worry about the keepers. Just have that in place.
No, I agree. What's your thoughts on this, Tina? Do you think we should just move away completely?
I mean, I would have agreed. I would have agreed with Bulky 100%. Until last night, when somehow Pope's like Wi-Fi flicked out and somehow he glitched out when Karabakh scored their goal. I've watched that goal 3 times and I still can't understand how he didn't get anything at all on that ball. But I do agree that goalkeeper shouldn't really be a priority position for us. I think Ramsdale and Pope okay, especially if we get the, tighten things up on the rest of the park so that they're not facing, constant shots the way that they have when like the midfield's not being able to keep the ball, or the defense have made individual errors, things like that. And on top of that, to be honest with you, does anybody really rate Trafford as like world class goalkeeper level? Like, is there a reason that we're going to get turned down by him and then still go back in for him? Because I mean, I get he's a good goalkeeper. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's terrible or anything, but I mean, he's not like leagues above Pope and Ramsdale in my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, because I mean I haven't seen loads of it, like every one of these games or anything, but is anybody, if people were going to name like a Premier League 11 or a World 11 and they were going to pick their dream top 3 goalkeepers that they would like to sign for Newcastle United, does anybody have Trafford in that list?
No.
Eddie Howe does.
Not.
Eddie, I'm going to say, apart from Eddie,
I mean, out of you 3.
no, at all. I mean, somebody put in the chat about going and get Karabag's keeper.
Yeah, fair shout.
Did you see his stats yesterday was phenomenal. Mateusz Kachalski saved 7 big chances versus Newcastle, the most by any goalkeeper in a single match this season, and they still lost 6-1. You can imagine what the score could have been if their keeper had a bad day. He certainly did well, but like I said, he certainly wouldn't be on my cards, if I'm honest with you. He's a bit static at times for me. He did well, but like I say, any keeper's only as good as the defenders in front of them, if I'm honest with you. You do get some worldies, but they're few and far between.
I tell you who I do think are world class are the people in the chat who have hit the like button. And I think there's a few more of them could become world class by hitting it. Come on, guys, we've got loads of people watching, and we've only got 33 likes. Give it a whack.
You've got to respect that for Boki, to be fair. The hustle is real, Boki.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I mean, like I said, I think the Trafford deal for me has long gone, and there's not a lot we can do about that now. When it goes to, again, I'm going to come to Anthony Gordon just for a brief spell. Anthony Gordon obviously laughed off links during a conversation that he had post-match with the Liverpool again that have come back into the fray. Same old, you may have asked. Arsenal links we heard earlier on. I mean, we referenced the 24 Liverpool near move that affected his form massively. But do you guys think that Anthony Gordon's matured enough now mentally and he's untouchable regarding these other teams coming in? And on top of that, and again, I want to try and keep it as brief as I can, but on top of that, do you think his Champions League form and what he's showing that he's doing over there has put more money in Anthony Gordon's bracket for Newcastle to utilise?
Well, I think undoubtedly, obviously, the better he plays and the better his numbers, the more money we'll get for him. But I just go back to the last interview that Anthony Gordon did. He said, his own words, he's only got one objective in his mind. Not going anywhere. He wants to stay on with this project and get as far as he can with Newcastle.
To be fair, though, I mean, he's not exactly going to say, yeah, no, I'm going to be honest with you, lads. I just want to kind of finish this season for Newcastle and go play for Liverpool. I mean,
well, Tonali was. Tonali told it like it was.
Did Tonali come out and say he wanted to leave Newcastle?
He said he couldn't see himself. He couldn't guarantee that he would be here in whatever that. I can't remember was it 3 years or 5 years or something?
4 years or something, wasn't it? He can't guarantee. He says I can't guarantee.
After his contract's up, which is 3 years or something.
Why does everything lead back to Tonali when there's negatives? Whenever there's anything raised about anything, any player, you lead back to Tonali as a negative thing.
Oh, Tonali hate in the panel. Let's send for Chris.
No. I was defending Tonali when he said that. I'm saying he's just telling the truth. Nobody knows in football what's going to happen, and that's exactly what he came out and said. And I was defending him when everybody was calling him for being disloyal and all that.
I mean, like I say, I just think, like again,
could be because I always look for the positive in things. I don't know.
Can I?
Tonali.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, for me, Tonali was absolutely sensational yesterday. He was the
Brilliant.
metronome, if you like, bouncing from one to another,
Yep.
played in that hollow in between, did everything spot on for me. And like I said, I think when you what I questioned is whether he can wear that leader's armband in that midfield, become that general. And again, we talk about Karabag only being Karabag, but again, you've got to play with yourself. And I thought he was outstanding, absolutely outstanding yesterday. The ground he covered, the press that he put on, the delivery of his balls were absolutely fantastic. I don't think the lad put a foot wrong yesterday against Karabag, and that's what you need. That's what you need from that midfield, a general, because we all questioned who was going to be alongside him. And it did look as though Joe Willock was dropping into that hollow at times and then moving alongside Woltemade when Woltemade then dropped in. There was lots of fluidity throughout the team, but you still need the man. And that's why I said he was like the conductor of the orchestra yesterday for me. Just the tempo of the game literally went through Tonali, dropped in between the two centre halves and led the two full-backs to push on and overload both wings. And that's where Karabag was stretched. And then all of a sudden, you're getting the balls pinged through the middle because Karabag tried to go too wide to narrow our delivery out to the angles. So we just went through the middle then. And that's when we got behind them time after time after time. Fantastic tactical setup by all that played yesterday. And that's why I said, for me, this is a good thing because if teams do want to come in for the likes of the big guys now, they've got to start paying the money, because what Newcastle aren't anymore is needing to sell. They can sell, and they probably will need to sell if they want to progress and bring in players, but they're not like we were in the Anderson situation with their arm literally forced up the back to try and, get a cheap move. And look how that's turned out.
I think if one for another show, Gary, as a question might be one day is, does Tonali play better when Bruno doesn't play?
Absolutely.
I think that's one that we can discuss massively in another show. I know we haven't got time tonight, but I think that one, I've won that one.
Yeah, they're both very similar players, you see, and I've said that when they're both hungry for the ball, and that's what I said. When you watch the game, Tonali literally sits within 5 yards of Bruno because they're both looking for the ball, and then when you do that, there's space somewhere else that somebody else can exploit if you give that ball away. So you're absolutely right. I think it's one or t'other, in the side, and I think you get the best when the two of them are away from, as in individually playing. But they're both too good to leave out the side. So that's the dilemma on formation, the way the gaffer sets up.
Or Gerrard.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. How do you play the two of them together that are both hungry for the ball? So I think it's one of them. Quick one on Woltemade. Obviously, there's uncertainty. And like I said, there's lots of rumours out there now from the £69 million signing. Again, fast start with form and then form dips. Then all of a sudden there's interest, or he's unhappy, he wants to move out. There's interest then starts to come from Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund, and now RB Leipzig seem to be in. But no one matching Newcastle's valuation of the German. So is this something, like we said before, it's so simple to see bad stories when your results are going against you. Is this something that's like patience is required? Or is it literally just a case of the player saying, that's it, I want away? Because what I saw yesterday certainly wasn't a player that wants away. He certainly still wants to play for the shirt. He was involved in virtually everything. Yes, he didn't get on the score sheet, but his link-up play with midfield to forward line, exceptional.
I think what I
is going nowhere. It's going nowhere unless we make an awful lot of money off him.
I think what I'd be peeved off with if I was Woltemade is Gordon goes up front and the team's changed to suit his style of play as a striker. Woltemade was playing up front, and not once was that the case that we changed the style we played to suit Woltemade. Why have we, when Gordon's went up front, we've changed the style, but when Woltemade's been up there all season, or Wisser, I'm not just saying it's been Woltemade, Wisser as well, why haven't we changed the style of play to suit them lads?
No, you've got that back to front. Gordon was played up top to suit the team. Woltemade was played in midfield to suit the team.
No, the team was set up around Gordon being up front. That team was set up for Gordon to shine up front. Why haven't we done the same for Woltemade and we're set to shine up front?
No. Gordon was put up front to make the team shine, to start the press.
So let's analyze this, because this could turn into a tennis match if we're both just gonna have like exactly in a polar opposite position. So what is it that you feel, Boki, if you don't mind me asking, what is it that you feel was changed in the style of play yesterday that suited Anthony Gordon so much?
Well, you had a player like in Woltemade who was played further forward, a lot further forward than any other players being played this season to support the striker. So you were basically playing an old 4-4-2 or a 4-4-1-1 at times when we were attacking, which meant the striker wasn't just left up front alone. The rest of the season, when Wissa Woltemade have been up there, what's been happening is we've been playing with a very, very rigid 3 in the midfield and not supporting them up front.
Right. So you think basically that. So do you think that same thing would be the change of tactics that would have worked best for if we were going to set the team up around Woltemade? Do you think it would still just be a case of having a number 10 who was playing, or at least a midfielder or a false 9 who was playing a bit closer to him?
Well, for me, what you could have done last night, if you were wanting Woltemade to play as the striker, is Woltemade up front, Barnes behind him, and Gordon on the left.
There's been a couple of people who have said that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there was a number of opportunities. I just think the biggest thing for me is that pace. I think what we've known from the press is you don't get the same intensity with Woltemade, unfortunately, and that's nothing to do with his capability as a top man. He hasn't got the threat that somebody running, excuse me, at full pace gives you, and I think that is the number cruncher for me. It's just that press. He's the trigger. Everybody else pushes on then. And, to me the other day when we noted the triangle from the press where you've got 3 players literally cutting off the angles, and it forces then teams to go long. And then the one thing, you talk about Newcastle's failure was winning those long balls, getting involved on them second balls when you've done the hard work up top. We were disjointed at times, and that makes you look very, for me, amateurish at times. How many times have we seen a ball kick from our keeper, Pope, and everybody just watches it? It's like, oh, there's the ball. It's like, is it a bird? Is it a plane? Oh, it's the ball that I've got to go and run for.
To be fair, when Pope kicks it, it's
to be fair though,
for a throw in.
I'm going to say, yeah, she'd have gone to the kebab shop. Kebab shop.
It's not.
Bad example, Gary.
No, well, you're right.
You must try to dive in on that. Poor Nick Pope.
Bless you. But you know what I'm saying. I think we've all seen there's been flaws this season, and you're absolutely right. I think the beauty of what Newcastle and Eddie Howe has, he can play a multitude of different players in different areas. That's what makes that versatility player so wanted in a Newcastle shirt, because you get that option then to go and say, well, they have been coached all week. We're going to play Woltemade up top. Not today. I'm going to drop him in. And all of a sudden, that 6 to 10 hours that you've worked on the training field goes annoy. And that's why you've seen over the last few games, Unai Emery screaming at his players to change certain things because certain things he wasn't expecting to play against. The same again, Tottenham with Thomas Frank screaming at his players to try and change formation during the game. And that's what I said. When you've done that, you're one up already, because you're making the coaches change formation during a game. It's because they've not expected what you've done. And again, I don't know what Karabag, again, you can only assume they were just concentrating on their own team rather than what Newcastle were going to do, because to be fair, you could see it looked like they'd never watched us in their lives, if I'm honest with you. We've got 20 minutes to go, so I want to get over this. There's a couple of things that I wanted to just mention, if you like. Newcastle are looking at a Saudi player at this present moment. He's being tracked as a potential move to one of our fullback scenarios. His name is Saud Abdulhamid. He's being tracked. It's a strategic move, if you like. We talk about depth of options, and obviously this is a commercial angle because of the Saudi links. So I wanted to ask you guys, is this a smart squad evolution or speculative scouting for me? Because like I said, I think this can work on both sides. Lots of links now saying Livramento City is getting closer and closer. The right back quietly becoming the priority for me and Eddie Howe, and Kieran Trippier's obviously age. He's not going to be offered another extension on his contract. We know that. So is this something that Newcastle should do with the thought of profiling the club in the Middle East?
No, it's something that Newcastle United should do because we just need to sign fullbacks. Like, if he's the fullback, I don't even care how good he is. Just sign him. Sign him right now. Just pay him what he wants. Bring him in. We need cover for fullback positions.
Yeah, good. Win?
No, I don't agree with Tina. Just panic just by any fullback. No.
That was being hyperbolic.
Yeah. But that's the thing. We've got to watch what pennies, so we've got to be very careful who we spend more money on. Why would Saudi teams at the minute are trying to build their league into a world-renowned league, as it were. Why would they be selling? And we've already heard from I forget who it was now that PIF are divesting themselves of the Saudi teams, and they reckon they'll be gone by summer. That PIF will have sold all their Saudi if they can get anywhere near the price they're looking for. They'll be selling all their Saudi teams by summer. So I don't think that's a route we necessarily want to go down, because we certainly can't afford to pay the wages that Saudi teams pay. So we're at a disadvantage there straight away. But I think we've got to broaden our scouting horizons worldwide to get more Africans, more South Americans, and that's where Ross Wilson should be concentrating his efforts, for me.
But can I pick up on this as well? Why isn't Ross Wilson in the club? The likes of Tino, the likes of Hall, we know there's going to be teams probably come in for them. Why haven't they been offered new contracts? Why haven't they been offered enhanced contracts? Let's try to fight off the approaches. Let's try to, be proactive.
Tino has refused to sign his.
Well, offer him more money. Let's go in and let's offer him more money, but put a buyout. Let's say to him, look, we'll pay you double your wage, but there's a buyout clause in there. So if a club comes in for you for X amount of money, then yes, we'll sell you. So say to him, we'll pay you that wage, but if a club comes in for a fullback, say £80 million, both him and Hall, if a club comes in for you at £80 million, we'll sell you on. So we're not going to hold you here at ransom, but we're offering you a bigger deal.
Well, I don't know that hasn't been put on the table.
Well, we don't, but I'm saying, why it hasn't been mentioned? There's no rumours about that at all, is there? There's nothing. The last contract was Botman's that we heard anything about. There's not been that sort of thing about getting players signed up.
Why
not try to start to do that? Why not go to the likes of Hall? Yes, we understand that a big club might come in for you, so we'll give you an £80 million release clause, but we'll offer you a massive contract. And I don't think the players would turn that down, because surely enough, they must know that they're worth a hell of a lot of money, those players now. And if there's a club that'll come in and pay that, it's a win-win for everybody. It gives us a massive transfer. It gives us a massive transfer pot. Well, you say things, Win, that we don't know 100%, but there's not been any rumours at all that any contract's been offered to Hall. And the one, as I say, Tino, why not offer him a bit more, but put that clause in?
Hall just signed the new contract. Tino's been offered a contract. Hall signed his new contract. Botman signed his new contract.
Hall's new contract isn't what he's worth now. That contract is he needs to, it. We need to start recognising when players are getting better and better and better. When they're getting Hall now is probably one of the best fullbacks in England, if not the best fullback for England. Let's enhance his deal again. As I say, but put the buyout clause in there, then we don't get into a Isaac situation in the summer again. So you're protecting the club both ways.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, you've got, like I said, I know they've been trying to get something done behind the scenes with Tino. I just don't think that he's in a position when he says, like, he's letting his dad deal with it. And again, is that just him trying to, get away from all of the noise that comes with these potential offers, if you like. And it may be something as simple as that. But again, I'm just looking, we've got 15 minutes before the lads come on. I was just going to put across the Manchester City team, and I know you guys ain't going to be able to see that, so I'll try and enlarge it a little bit. Can you guys see, again, what have I done with my screen? My screen's gone all over the shop.
When can just while Gary's trying to get that sorted, can I ask when Hall signed a new contract?
When he signed,
I don't remember him signing one.
1st of July 2024.
Right, so he hasn't just signed a new contract then, and he's certainly developed since then.
July 2024.
Yeah, on the topology.
So that's 2
1.5
years ago.
ago.
Yeah, and he's certainly developed a hell of a lot since then. So he certainly hasn't just signed a new contract.
June 24. It's 18 months ago.
Yeah, so that's definitely not recently signed a new contract. He's developed a hell of a lot since then.
Yeah, like I said, I would nail these guys down to a long term and put a release clause in if that's what they need to do.
Well, I'm not denying that I would do that either.
But I mean, if for me, like I said, if you're going to get the money for these guys, we've got to start being like the Manchester Cities, the Arsenals, where it's not just the money to let them go; it's what you get if they get sold on again. Is the buyback clauses. We just seem to be a team. And again, we go back to the Paul Mitchell saying, it's a transfer system that just isn't fit for purpose. And, there's a multitude of angles to look at that. Again, I don't know.
Yeah, let's face it, the players that we've sold recently, with the exception of Anderson and Minty, which were forced deals in the financial straits that we were in at the time, who have we sold that those criteria would apply to?
What criteria? Sorry.
Sell on somebody who you think's going to, potentially increase their value and thereby be worth.
But we haven't had one, have we?
Give us a millisecond to think, Isaac.
Yeah.
I mean, his values probably went down, to be fair.
We're over a barrel with Isaac, as you know. So
yeah.
But if we put a release clause in his, you've asked the question. If we put a release clause in his contract, yeah, but if we'd put a release clause in there, then we would never have had the issues that we had over the summer.
If we'd given him a contract, we probably wouldn't have had the issues.
Give him a contract.
Just extend it. And that's what I said. There's so many permutations to that.
When we signed Isaac, and by the way, he's still been on the same contract he was always on. When we signed Isaac, what would his sell-on clause have been?
It probably would have been less than 100.
Probably would have been 80,000 or something, 90,000.
In fact, check
1,000?
before you speak, man. It says the American Mac. There you go. Thank you for that one. $199.
We're trying to sell our players down the big market.
I'm not going to mention. Yeah, because my screen's froze, so I'm not going to go.
When doing the George Graham transfer, when doing the George Graham transfer style.
Yeah, well, Manchester City currently sit second in the Premier League table with 53 points from 26 matches. trailing leaders Arsenal by 5 points, but holding a game in hand now. Recent form, unbeaten in their last 7 matches across all competitions, including a 3-0 win over Fulham and a 2-0 for FA Cup victory against Salford, taking it really easy against them. Key absences is still Gvardiol with a leg fracture, and Kovacic remains sidelined. Injury doubts. Erling Haaland is a major doubt after picking up a knock that forced him off at half-time during the FA Cup win against Salford. Savinho, Jeremy Doku are also nearing returns, but still remain questionable. This is the 4th meeting between the two sides this season across various competitions. Head-to-head, City recently defeated Newcastle 3-1, 5-1 in aggregate at the Etihad in the Carabao Cup semi-final on February the 4th. However, Newcastle won the reverse league fixture 2-1 at St James's Park in November. Etihad dominant City have formidable home record this season with 10 wins from 13 league games. It looks a formidable task for Newcastle to go to the Etihad and get anything. And like I say, when you look at the predicted lineups, again, I don't know how City will go. I mean, the last time Martin was on, bless him, he was virtually spot on with what he said. But I'm only going to go with what FOTMob are giving me. Donnarumma in goal, Nunes, Diaz, Guehi, and Ait-Nouri as your 4 at the back. O'Reilly, Rodri, and Silva as your 3 holders in midfield. They've gone with Semenyo left side, Haaland up top, and again, there's a question mark whether Haaland will be fit, and Foden.
That is a ridiculous team. Absolutely
It's incredible. It's incredible, isn't it?
Is.
And you don't even want to look at the bench when I say that. When again, this is FOTMob, and this is what's strange with FOTMob and SofaScore and the like. Now, the Newcastle side to face Manchester City, they've got Pope in goal, Trippier, Chow, Botman, and Byrne at left back. Willock, Tonali, and Ramsey in the middle. Langard on the right, Anthony Gordon up top, and Harvey Barnes. So again, they've gone with just pace.
No Lewis Hall.
No Lewis Hall. They've got Dan Byrne as left back, and Botman back in the side. And again, I don't know whether that's factual or not, because we know Botman's still nursing a back injury. But we need some rest for our young'un. But like I say,
when Eddie was asked about injuries prior to the Karabakh game, he said that the only one who could make it out off the injury table was J7. And he says, with regard to the City game, because he was already looking ahead to that, he said out of the rest of the Crocs, only potentially Miley might have a shout.
Might have a shout.
But there was no Botman mentioned then.
There was headlines, and again, I read it briefly just before the start of the show, and it said that there was 7 already confirmed out of Manchester City, plus 6 major doubts. Right. So again, when you read the story, it's a Shields Gazette, by the way. I'm going to mention you. Doesn't really give you any names. So we know the players that are already confirmed to a degree, and you've just mentioned one that was question mark, which is Miley. But then when it says 6 major doubts, I'm like, who's the major doubt? And again, maybe they're looking at lads that maybe have taken a knock, a bang, or is it fatigue? I don't know. It's an interesting one. I mean, do you think there's anything in that? Do you think there's any truth behind the scenes there with the 6 major doubts, or do you think it's clickbait?
Well, the main thing we'll find out tomorrow morning. Really, well, will we?
No, you won't. You won't find out nothing.
The first question will always be about injuries, so we'll have a better idea then than we have now, certainly. Because when he says somebody won't be available, that's generally pretty nailed on.
Yeah.
Mute, Bogey.
Sorry, I was just saying there's a few lovely fish and chip shops in Shields. And I think the best thing for the Shields Gazette is to wrap them up with them. because some of the stories are absolutely shocking, to be perfectly honest.
They are. But you know, when they come up as headlines, you think, oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to have a bit of a dive into that. And when you read it, it's like, oh, you've not mentioned a single player here.
Clickbait, I think is the aim thing to say.
Yeah, I don't think you can wrap chips in newspaper anymore.
No, you're not allowed.
Well, no, it's not only that. I can't get my iPad around the chip paper. Anyway, it's really crazy to think. David Veach here is talking about Ross Wilson will sort out contracts for our developing players, or they will be sold. And I think that, you know, we go back to what we mentioned earlier on. There's a lot of talk about contracts, and I think, you know, Eddie Howe realises we're going to lose a lot more players than we're going to get money for in the summer, because contracts have ended on freeze, if you like, and they will be allowed to leave. So just on the finish of tonight then, because like I say, there's lots more out there for us to monitor, if you like. So Konstantinos Karatis is another one that Newcastle, apparently he plays at Genk, and there's confirmation that Newcastle are looking at him. He's an 18-year-old, this Karatis, attacking midfielder. They reckon he's around 41 million euros. They're closely monitoring him. Genk's technical director, Dimitri Deconda, stated that while it would be ideal to keep Karatis for another year, the chances are very low. Genk CEO Luke Huybrechts clarified that the motivation for a sale is not purely financial, but concerns the player's development. Karatis has a contract till 29 and a market value of around about 28,000 euros, but they reckon it's going to be nearer the 40 million euros mark before they'll let the player leave, if that's not, negotiated through time. There's other teams obviously looking at this lad. Liverpool, Everton, Newcastle, Bournemouth and Sunderland are also taking a liking to this lad. Anthony Gordon, Manchester City. Apparently Manchester City seem to be inquiring about the likelihood and asking price of Anthony Gordon, along with Manchester United. Believe it or not, Ben Jacobs was the one that bought the Manchester United with an asking price somewhere in the region of £100 million, stated the United stand that Manchester United have had internal discussions about a potential transfer for Anthony Gordon. Jacobs
isn't it funny that there's 4 of the big 6 who are looking to disrupt our season by...
Cool. Well, that's what I said. You're going to bring it. They're going to... Yeah, absolutely. And that's what they do. That's what... Yeah. Even if they don't play them. I know it sounds crazy. They'll spend this money just to get that dismantlement of Newcastle. And this is, again, to raise summer funds for asking price is going to be around about the 95 to 100 million mark for the 24-year-old Newcastle player. And again, that just doesn't go away. And we've talked about Saud Abrahamad. Then you've got Anthony Gordon linked to Liverpool, Anthony Gordon linked to Arsenal. Nick Woltemade, again, Bayern Munich. And then Nicholas Jackson comes again. And again, it looks like Team Talk, which, again, I don't listen to a lot of their stuff, to be fair, are saying that Nicholas Jackson's representatives already in advanced discussions with intermediaries about a potential move to Newcastle. Not sure on how much I'd believe into that. Adilan Kasuno, another one from... Italy. He's 25-year-old that joined Atalanta. He's another defender that they are looking at. Gasu Diakite is another one that Newcastle are approaching. And like I said, it just seems as though, like I said, for me, it's a long list of names that we see on, a number of times linked to Newcastle. It's like a Christmas tree with baubles. Just put a name on a bauble and it seems to be there. The boys are approaching the time where they can come on board and do their evening or late evening slot. Obviously, it's not Jack Cunningham if I'm honest with you. It's Michael Grahamslaw who's in the hot seat tonight. That confused me for a little bit, Michael.
Yeah, just trying to do a little foolery. Jack will do a better job than me, I'm sure.
Jamie and Ian Supermac are going to continue for the late part of the show. Obviously, the American mag isn't available tonight, so Michael's taking the hot seat. Have a good one, guys. I'll catch you tomorrow morning. Ian.
Catch you later, guys.
See you later.
Ciao, ciao.
See you there, lads. Yes, absolutely. Catch Ian and Gary doing the press conference tomorrow. But for now, they're here now, the present. It's your late night show with me, Michael Grahamslaw, the mighty Win, Ian, Jamie, and just joining us right now, Tim. How are we all doing, Win? You all good? I know you got a bit of a grief off Chris towards the end there, but still going strong?
Never better, never better.
Good man.
It'll take more than the American mouse to knock me off my pedestal.
Good. How are you, Ian? You doing well?
Doing good. Yes, I have managed to get through the day with only watching the 6 goals go in half a dozen times. And I didn't watch many highlights from the second half. But no, I've been smiling and clapping all day, I suppose. Now fully expecting us to get something at Manchester City on Saturday night.
That's right.
Ooh, bold statement, bold indeed. Jamie, you doing well, and are you as positive as Ian is for the weekend?
Yeah, I'm doing well, and no to the second part. I'm going to Manchester tomorrow, but to be honest, right, I'll take out of that match if they give a good account of themselves, and if he does a similar thing that he done at Anfield last year, where he sets a trap for the cup in 2 weeks' time. He kept his cards very close to his chest at Liverpool when it was 2 weeks before the League Cup final, and look what happened. So I'd rather he did that again. But it's been a good week so far, and as I say, I think I'd take a performance at Man City, and we can start picking up Premier League points against Everton next week.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Let's be honest, City the tough one. Everton definitely looking at 3 points there. But Tim, how you feeling, mate? You doing well?
Good, mate, thanks, And I would echo what everyone said, and that I am looking forward to the game. Normally, I'm dreading the Etihad, and it's a case of let's get this over with. But, we might well lose, obviously, and most would expect us still to lose. But I am interested to see how we set up and see if we can carry on this momentum. And like you say, Jamie, if we don't win or don't get a draw, at least put in a good performance that gives you that hope for the next games afterwards. And I think Wynne touched upon it in that we did have chances at the Etihad last time we played there, and if we score those chances, it could be a different game. So, hopefully we'll have those chances again, and this time put them away. But yeah, it's kind of a free hit in a way, and that's, like I say, I'm looking forward to it. And if we play well, that's kind of the main thing to give hope for the next games afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely going to be the toughest tie we've probably had so far this year, let's be honest. With Arsenal dropping points at the top of the table, it's getting pretty tight. And this is always when Manchester City come good. But wouldn't it just be this year's title race for there to be another shock this weekend? But we'll get into the news. It's been a pretty slow news day all in all. The main thing has been, not sure if many people saw it, but the howler, as many are calling it, from journalist Martin Hardy on X. I'm just going to share something there. So we'll get into a zoom in of my face.
You've shared your own big head.
It's what everyone wants, what can I say? But hi, thanks for the chat. These are the 3 images I've been sent. I'm aware Alan didn't pose in one. Well, it's good that he's got that bit. Are we in the right ballpark to use 1 or 2 of these? Now, that's the old pinstripe number that is basically, it's been leaked, a few weeks back. but there's one in there, the blue, which kind of looks a little bit like a Scotland home kit with the older NUFC crest. If these are to be the two kits next season, Win, I'll start with you. What do you think?
Well, it's funny because I was watching a bit of Serie A last night, and Juventus's kit is also very similar to that now. The one they are playing in right
get
now.
The exclusives of him, don't you? Juventus also playing black and white, everybody. I'm going to go back and confirm this on the internet, right? Hold on.
No, but I'm saying that particular, with the one broad band down the middle where the narrower bands emanating from it, if you like, rippling from it, is what Juve's current first team strip is.
Well, Derek, it'll be the first time anyone's got decent broadband inside St James's Park.
You too, right?
I'm surprised Derek knows what broadband is, but I think they're lovely kits, but I don't think they're a Newcastle kit. I think it's a nice kit. We've got to have our normal broad black and white stripes.
Yeah.
Maybe
I don't know. I'm one of the few people who love the barcode.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I like that strip. I don't think it would suit us. I like the blue that's been added to it as well, but it is.
Well, I've always liked a bit of blue in it, which we've had a few times now.
Win likes a bit of blue,
I understand with Adidas, they've got to try and come up with something different, haven't they? And it's kind of trying to find that happy medium between something fresh but something still that feels like Newcastle United. And I think this probably goes a bit too far. I think it is, yeah. I can see where they're going, and I like the blue as well. And I think I would always try and have a bit of blue in the kit. Ideally, it would be a darker shade of blue. Yeah. My favourite kit is the 1999-2000 kit. I think that was just perfect, and that's got the blue one with the collar, and obviously that was Adidas with the brown nail. So I think it's nice to have that third colour, if you like. But yeah, with this, you know what, right? It'll probably grow on people, and if we do well next season in that kit, it'll become iconic, won't it? But yeah, the initial reaction is a little bit too far for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. Jimmy, what do you think?
I think what Tim's nailed it a little bit there. Well, first of all, I will never form an opinion until I see it on somebody, on a player moving around, and what it looks like with the shorts and socks. I think it can look quite different then compared to what it looks like. I know they're models, but effectively on a mannequin. But by the same token, if you have a really good season, it becomes legendary. Whereas you can have a lovely kit, and if you have a very forgettable season, you don't remember the kit. So, I mean, I'm not offended by it. I agree with that point. They're trying to do something different and edgy, and there's only so many black and white stripes designs you can have. The one disappointment I've got is I'm waiting for the collar to come back in, the proper collar, the Cantona style.
Proper Granda collar.
It not like a lift up one that you
collar
fold
with
over.
A la Cantona.
Yeah, and it's obviously it'll happen some season soon because fashion is cyclical, but it's not going to happen this year. I don't really like that round collar.
Yeah, I've got no doubt I'll see it on someone like Joe Linton, think it looks amazing, then get it for myself and wonder why it doesn't look as good. That seems to be the case every single year, if I'm honest. But I think something that I'm seeing quite a lot from people since the return of Adidas is that the actual kits themselves, they've been quite disappointed in. I've seen quite a few people saying that the quality of the kits has improved in regards to the fabric and stuff, but they actually preferred the old Castor kits. Is that something that anyone agrees with? Win, do you prefer the old Castor?
No, I didn't. There was nothing much I liked about Castor at all. You're saying people didn't like the kits, but they're still buying them in their droves, aren't they?
Oh, 100%.
So
I guess with that,
you pay your money, you take your choice.
there's plenty of scope on an away kit and a third kit to be as creative as you like. You can use any colours and you can put any designs you want on. We don't have stripes on those at the moment. Just don't think that it's due to us to move away from our black and white stripe, and that might restrict the colour palette, but that's because that's Newcastle's kit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or am I wrong? Should I be embracing change like this so that we do run around looking like a barcode attached to a zebra crossing?
It's always a point.
Yeah, I think if you take away a couple of those pinstripes, then I think I can accept that. Some of those either side on the white. So there are a few pinstripes there. It's a bit different, but it's not like totally in your face like it is with the final result there. I mean, in terms of Castor and Adidas, I love this season's kit. I think it's one of the best we've had personally. I think it's a brilliant balance between kind of modern, if you want to call it modern, but also retro features, and the blue I think is lovely. The Adidas stripes, look great on the shoulders. I think it's a class kit this season. And Castor, to be honest, apart from the quality, obviously, with all the shirts getting ripped and stuff like that, I think the designs themselves, I do think were quite good as well. I think I'm thinking back to their kits, and the number 4 thing on the front, where it wasn't a 4 but it looked like a 4, that was a bit of a they dropped the ball with that bit. But aside from that, it was okay. Then the ones after that I thought were really nice. But I think it is best. It's great to have Adidas back, that's for sure. And like I said, I think I love this season's kit. But
I like
different.
Yeah, to be honest, when I first saw them, I wasn't actually like a massive fan of it when I first saw them. But it's sort of one of those where when you see, as Jamie was saying, you see it on the players, it's completely different to what you see in that first concept image. And there probably is a case for this where you are looking at it, and although it looks very different, the pinstripes, etc., it might look absolutely brilliant when we see it on players, and that probably will be the main difference there. The other one that's in there that is a little bit harder to see on this exact image, so I'm going to just add another one in there. So again, that is the rumoured for I'm going to assume the third kit, because we're expecting a green kit as well, let's be honest. A little bit tidier, a little bit less going on there, but what do we think of that? Do we think that's a nice one? 'Cause I think it's really simple.
That's like 1950s,
You know what? The thing is, I quite like it.
I love it. So I think we've got to give a bit of an audible thing for people listening on the radio, because this could be Japanese torture, seeing look at that shirt. But it's got like a sort of round, thick white collar. It looks like a shirt that Scotland would have worn in sort of the 1974 World Cup or something, with the old 1970s badge with a magpie on it and an Adidas trefoil, I believe you call that.
Yes.
Is the symbol. And it's very minimalist, but I think it's lovely. I do question how big a difference that's going to make. If you could you wear that away to Tottenham or Fulham and be allowed it? Probably not. It's going to be worn at games where we don't need to change, isn't it? Like Liverpool away or something.
Probably, yeah. Let's be honest. We are, as I say, we are probably expecting a green kit as well. But that's always going to be the one that gets leaked last, in my opinion, just based off that. But Michael, overall, yeah, Tim.
Sorry, mate. Just to say, I've heard that there isn't a green kit. I've heard it's a light shade of pink.
I would quite like that, because I really like the goalkeeper one we've currently got.
So I'd straight away jump in on a question on that. That if you've got black and white as the home kit, light pink as the second kit, and navy blue as the third kit, none of them work at Tottenham and none of them work at Brighton, because the pink's too light and the blue's a clash. And that should be a big factor,
I agree. I think this would work at Tottenham, this one. I think you get away with this one at Tottenham and Fulham, but I agree in terms of Brighton, maybe Brentford, but yeah, definitely Brighton. There's a bit of a dodgy one, that I think.
I don't think pink clashes with blue and white stripes, does it?
if it's light and if they're in a very light kit, if they've got like a white back and white shorts and everything, and we are in light pink, the reason I think of that is Brentford turned up last season in a very light pink kit, and I think passing was all to hell. I think the teams were passing to each other because it was so close to Newcastle's predominantly white kit. And like I felt, I wrote that in the match report a couple of times, and I felt like people were saying you're making excuses, but we won both the games. So I think a colour.
I just don't like pink anyway. I didn't mean pink on a goalie, but I didn't like pink on a.
You were gone
on a strip.
Nah, that old Palermo
1950s
classic.
Yep, absolutely back to 1950s, 60s.
I was going to say, Juventus playing pink, but you've only just heard of them for the first time earlier at night. You won't be.
No, the fact that they're playing it doesn't mean I've got to like it.
No, absolutely. And so on to our second topic conversation for the day. Obviously, we mentioned there the new kits, etc. We've got some good chats in there as well. Lindsay, agreeing with you, Tim. Heard that the kits are gone for next season. Is there anything that anyone actually wants from a kit? Do we really care that much, or is it just a case of get something out there that doesn't look atrocious?
What I'd say,
black and white stripes.
Well, I would say you're not going to get it because it's the modern day, unfortunately, modern game where everything's a template. But in the past, Adidas used to do kind of silhouettes of the crest, didn't they, on the shirt, and little patterns like that, and the time bridge as well, stuff like that. That's what I want to see. But again, it's all template stuff for each club, with the colours being different. So you're less likely to get that these days, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. They released a limited edition one, I think, that I sometimes wear, that has I was stupid enough to buy it. It had the logos actually embroidered in the background. That's exactly what I want as well. Something like that. Just something a little bit different. I completely agree with you. Because, as you say, it's all template. And if we end up with something just the same as Juventus, it is going to be just a case of, we all still really like it, we'll buy it again. But, I completely agree. I want to see something a little bit different.
I remember we did a show back in the early days when we first kicked off, which was showing when Adidas did our new version, proposed new version, and it was identical in terms of the template, identical to what Arsenal had at the time, with the various bits and pieces going on in the background. I think it was specifically the goalkeeper top. It was absolutely identical to Juventus, Arsenal, all the other Adidas brands.
I think keeper tops are still like that, aren't they? They're just the same shirt, same colours and design and everything, just with the different badge on.
I think it's the same background patterns, if you want to call it that. If you were layering it on Canva or something, it's all the same but different colours.
Yeah, and to be honest, most of them kind of do look like they've been made on Canva. These concept kits, there's some that look really nice that I've found, but just had one sent through to me there by Connor. The pink kit, as such, I mean, it's the pink kind of looks a little bit faded there. It looks more like a white. But to be honest, if it was that concept, I actually wouldn't mind it as much. I don't know what the rest of you think.
It looks nifty, but it's useless. The main thing I want from an away kit is a kit that stands out against the teams that our home kit will clash with, and that's like old-fashioned to the extent that it's something Wynn would say. But I would like a yellow and green, which was a bit of a traditional colour that clashes with nobody.
Yeah, that's right.
Like
as long as Norwich aren't in the Prem.
No chance of that these days.
Are you ever in a pub or like in the gym or something like that, and there's highlights on the TV, and you can never tell who's playing because, like, you can tell obviously one of the teams is, say, Chelsea, but you can never tell who the opponent is because people just stick any old kit on for an away game, don't they? They change kit whimsically to get all these different designs out there. And until you can go up, if it's, you know, highlights from earlier in the season, you don't know what the game is. And I would like us to have something that stands out, because it could win you a point. It honestly could win you a point to have a standout kit.
Yeah,
I would like us to only wear the change kit where the black and white stripes clash with the opposition.
Yep. Yep.
You know, that
Very
was,
good point.
That was everything that we did back in the day. The only time you ever changed your kit was if it was actually clash. If your first choice kit was clashing with the home team's.
One point on that win, if you go back to the 0-2, I think it was 0-2 or 3 season when we were in the Champions League, we had our away kit then was like a cream and dark blue, and it was in that sense very similar to our home kit. And when you look at that season, we basically wore the home kit in 95-99% of games. You know, obviously home or away. It's like you look at the season review, it's always the black and white, apart from like I think 2 games or something here and there with that NTL kind of cream and navy blue kit, which was nice, but like you're saying, Jamie, it was kind of pointless because they couldn't wear it at teams like Fulham and Tottenham. So yeah, I agree, and I think wear the away kit if you need to, but do an away kit where it is more different to the opposition, but also iconic. And I would maybe say like cover a permanent colour if you like, maybe a blue, where it's a different shade of blue here and there. Maybe like a blue away kit, or like you say, a yellow away kit, like we used to have a long time ago. Because you look at teams, like you say, you put the TV on. I agree, JB. Like you think about who is playing from a distance. That's iconic to the team. You know, there's no links colour-wise that team, and that you think of straight away. So unfortunately, it's just kind of a symptom of the modern game where it's all about money in terms of getting the kits out there and advertising the kits so that people buy it.
I think people would buy it anyway, regardless of whether it was worn or not.
I haven't heard anyone shout, "Get your kits out" for ages. But do you think the third kit, by the way, is purely a marketing thing? Do we really need a third kit if you design 1 and 2 properly?
You do with the second kit still black and white like that one. You'll need a third kit for when there's a colour clash. Imagine turning up with Fulham and going, "Oh, here's what change kit."
No, well that's why.
That's why for me against Fulham, you can play in your black and white stripes. We did for years.
It's the white patch in the back win that's the problem these days. You could in the past, we did in the past, but that white patch in the back throws a spanner in the works, doesn't it?
Well, this is also a thing that annoys me, other than you've got to have your number patch now by regulation, but there's no reason why it can't be all black and white stripes. I mean, I did actually hate the when we had that shield on the back. I thought that was horrible. I don't know.
I'd take that now. I'd take that now.
Really? Why?
Yeah. I just think I think when it's a blank, when it's a blank back like that with no stripes, it just looks a bit, I would say, more tacky, where you got the stripes just suddenly getting cut off at the bottom. It just, at least with a shield, it's actually the shield of the crest, isn't it? So it's more unique to Newcastle.
Yeah, fair play, fair play. One last thing on kits, because Gary sent me over this as well, and Lynn mentioned it earlier as well. If you zoom in on that image, it's got a bit of a better, sort of shows you a little bit better. It's got the brick pattern there in the background, which, you know, it's something a little bit different. I guess there is something embroidered in there, but I'm not, well, maybe someone can tell me the connection to Newcastle and bricks. I know we're an old-fashioned sort of town. You know, we're equated with a lot of you know, working class jobs, but it seems a little bit different for my liking. But you know, it still looks pretty decent. So nothing wrong with that at all, I guess. But
not really appropriate, Michael, for some of our defensive performances. I would venture to suggest.
Defensive
wall, which obviously has had a lot of holes in on 1 or 2 games.
Yeah, it hasn't been great, has it? Absolutely atrocious at times.
If you got the I get the player versions which are quite tight fitting, and if you got one of them in that design, it looked like you were built like a brick outhouse.
Aye, but then you've got to wonder how it looks on people like me. So let's pray. Well, I'll just not get that version. It's fine. But to move on, we've had a talk of kits. We'll go on to just a quick talk about next week, because Eddie Howe has spoken about the Qarabağ fixture, saying that he's still going to respect Qarabağ in the second leg. Now, there is respect, and there's also, you know, you're 6-1 up. But risk-wise for Newcastle, are we realistically in a position for that game against Qarabağ where we could lose the tie? Because you're 6-1 up at St James's Park. I know it's probably never acceptable to treat a European tie as job done, but even if you gave mass disrespect to Qarabağ, you shouldn't be giving away a 5-goal lead. So what's the riskiest thing that can happen to us next week? Because it feels like big players getting injured. What do you think, Ian?
I definitely think if they're looking at their loadings, some of the guys that are getting close to red will be rested. But I still think we've got to go and win this. It's all about momentum, isn't it? Let's say we do what Jamie said. We have a really good performance, narrowly beaten by Manchester City. I mean, we want to bounce back before we're facing Everton, don't we? And that would be putting the cherry on the cake in the Qarabağ tie. I think we've got to go out to win it, but I don't think he's got to go as full strength as he did last night. I think it's a perfect opportunity for Alex Murphy to get 90 minutes, for example. Maybe for Sean Neve to start. And you know, Sahar, he must have served his time on the bench long enough to get at least some time in that game. It'd be good. I think Lewis Miley might be back by then. Probably needs a game to get up to match fitness to be spot on for the big games coming up afterwards. So, you know, it's a useful game, isn't it? Which could almost be treated as a training exercise. But we were just so much stronger than they were last night. I think we can do that. We can rest who needs to be rested, but we can still go turn it on. 52,000 Geordies there, isn't it, under the lights? I mean, they're not just going to coast it and be happy that they've lost 3-1. That's not going to happen.
No, absolutely not. But I think for me, the biggest risk is players getting injured. Obviously, there's no chance of that with Malik Chow. He's out with a suspension anyways. But Jamie, do you think we should be resting players for this game?
I think after the Man City game is done, he should pick an 11 for Everton, and he should pick an entirely different 11 for Qarabağ, which gives you two benefits. First of all, he's always saying that they haven't had time to train this season because they've got a game midweek and on the weekend, and they haven't got time to train for the opposition. So you can take that 11, they can go with one coach and train for Everton, and for Man United that comes shortly after that. And you can give a chance to all them players that Ian mentioned, Neve, Shahar, people who are coming back like Wissa, give Ramsdale a go in goal, and you can have two different teams. I agree with you, Michael. No, don't risk anything. I'll be pretty annoyed. And I've paid £100 for tickets for me and my little one. I expect to see a shadow team. It's the best for Newcastle, and I'll be pretty annoyed if I turn up and it's all the same starting 11 again, because you're not giving people a chance and you're running that risk of injury.
Yeah, absolutely.
Use that squad.
Yeah, that's the thing that you mentioned there, the £100 for the two tickets. I know the tickets for this game in particular were a little higher than what the normally, obviously they boosted up the price. That's another thing of, if you do play that weekend side, you know there's going to be some fans out there who, you know, do complain about it, but that's not Eddie Howe's problem, I guess. Tim, would you agree with Jamie's suggestion? Have two different 11s, one for Everton, and then obviously there is, not the reserves, but the backups playing against Qarabağ?
I can definitely see that point, no doubt about it. I think we, and Eddie Howe to an extent, has talked about injuries and fatigue. I mean, with that in mind, I just can't see how you can't use this game to alleviate those worries, if you like, of fatigue, of injuries. You couldn't get a more perfect game, could you? 6-1 up. Like you say, the tie, it is dead unless there's a collapse of all collapses. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying as well, Ian, and that you want the momentum to continue. So, I think at the very least, right, if you put out a strongish side in the first half, and providing the score isn't, 2-0, 3-0 there, half time, then ring the changes and put on Shahar, give those a run out. We'll have to do something. We can't just leave it until the 70th minute and then make changes. We can't have it both ways.
I'll tell you one thing. I bet you Gordon plays. Gordon's going to want to be on score another hat trick and catch Mbappe up, isn't he? He wants the Champions League golden boot.
But it's not about him, is it? It's about the team, and I appreciate the hunger from Gordon. But I mean, like I say, maybe he plays like the first half and then he's subbed off. But I think if you've got players that you really rate and you think are very important for the rest of the season, I think you've got to wrap them in cotton wool, for this game going forward.
Yeah, completely.
And if there's one game he should be up for next week, between scoring, flat track bully goals in the Champions League and Everton, I'll be very disappointed if it's Karabag out of them.
Yeah, completely great point, considering the missed penalty against Everton as well. He doesn't tend to do great against his former side. But, Win, what are you thinking about Karabag next week? Is it one of those where, because it's job done, we can play more of the youngsters? I know during the live comms we were wanting to see more of the youngsters, and we didn't really get it, did we?
Well, you have got the small matter of a few million quid for getting a win in the Champions League to consider.
True.
But that aside, I'm completely with Jamie on this one. I would have, your A team on the bench, who just in case it started going, if they went, I don't know, 3-0 up after 20 minutes as we did. Then you've got someone to think about, and as long as you've got the big guns to bring off the bench afterwards, then should the need arise, and hopefully, of course, it won't arise. I would be all for Shahar, Murphy, you name it. Miley, certainly, if Miley's fit, it's an ideal game for him to get his fitness levels up.
Yeah.
But, Alanga even...
J7 as well?
Yeah, J7 as well. And Alanga, because he's still got he was... My big disappointment last night was Alanga. So he still needs to find his form. I still haven't given up on him. But he needs to recapture some of that form that we paid the £55 million for. And who knows, Wissa apparently is closer than a lot of people think.
It'll sound a bit hollow if we don't use this game to rest and rotate. And then if we do later on in the season start talking about schedules and start talking about fatigue, that will feel a bit and sound a bit hollow if we haven't used this game, to make sure that players are rested.
Yeah, 100%. And to be fair, while Eddie Howe was talking about giving Karabag respect, the Chronicle were running a story pretty much at the same time about 5 players that simply must start during Newcastle's free hit next week, which is obviously the Karabag game. They mentioned Leo Shahar, Alex Murphy, Sean Neve, Park Sung-soo, and amongst all those youngsters, Aaron Ramsdale, who does need a bit of game time, but you've got, I think Ramsdale's had a lot more game time than the others combined. So I'm not sure he sort of fits in that list, but I can see why they've added him. Out of the 5, in fact, let's take Ramsdale out of the equation. Out of Shahar, Murphy, Sean Neve, and Park Sung-soo, who do you most want to see start from what you've seen so far? Win, what do you think?
Well, I think if you take Ramsdale out of that equation, you can put Asula into that equation.
Yeah.
So, and I would say, I would like them all to start. But But most, I think Shahar, because he's the one that's certainly getting all the plaudits.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that like him.
Hasn't had the thing. And I mean, I did a thing whereby, England under 21 captains and all that who've gone on to do the square root of nothing, because under 18s to first team is such a huge step. But let's see what he can do. And so soon. Because, everybody was excited pre-season with him, with his little cameo.
Yeah, absolutely. He played a few of those pre-season games when Newcastle looked absolutely dreadful, and he was one of the shining lights.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was absolutely fantastic. Alex Murphy was another one that featured in those games. Ian, I know you're a fan of the young Irishman. We'd like to see, is he the one you'd most like to see start, or do one of the other youngsters tip your fancy a bit more?
I'd like to see all of them win, but I think Alex Murphy's ready-made to step in for Chow, isn't he? Wrong side, I get that. But if we're missing a centre-half because Botman's not fit yet, then there's no panic. Murphy's trained with him for 18 months, so I think he'd step in and you wouldn't notice that anything had dropped. I'd love to see Shahar get a start. I'd love to see more of Neve, actually. I was really impressed, as you remember from our chat last night when we did the ratings.
Yeah, he looked really good.
He only touched it 3 times. One was to knock their fullback over to win a throw-in. Another one was a fabulous cross that Chow should have scored from. And the last one was one which somebody's toe end just took it behind him. Otherwise, he would have scored. Yeah, more creative. Did we work out he's more creative than... who was it? He was more creative.
Was it Barnes? It was Barnes or Elanga. I think it was Harvey Barnes in the end.
More creative than Elanga it was.
Yeah, during the game
you can't really do it. But I'd love to see Neve. I thought he hadn't been picked because he was a young 18-year-old whippersnapper who'd get knocked off the ball by everybody. But I thought he put it about really well in the few minutes that we saw him. He's not overawed at all by going shoulder to shoulder with some fairly big lads.
No.
I'd love to see Park. I'd love to see Park dancing up and down the wing as well, because like everybody, I was excited by what I saw pre-season. It's important not to throw everybody in though. I mean, we need a experienced spine to hold it all together. Which it could be Joe Linton and Miley in midfield. They're needing some match fitness. But I mean, we've got a game to play before we come to this one. It's a nice idea to pick the Everton team, and then pick 11 others. I think he might rest 8 or 9 that start against Everton. But I don't know if we've got a big enough squad to switch them all around without chucking too many kids in. And like say, they could be 2 up after 10 minutes, and we're starting to wonder what the hell we were thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Could you imagine the crowd reaction if they go 2-0 up after 10 minutes? There might be a couple of boos, and I think they'd probably be warranted, to be honest. But Jamie, obviously you're going to the game. Park Sung-soo's probably the most exciting on the ball there. Is he one you'd like to see play?
I would. Someone said in the comments that he can't play, and I'm not sure why. They haven't elaborated on that. He hasn't been in the club long enough to be included in List B, saying there. So, that would be disappointing. But by the same token, he hasn't really had the under-21 exposure that some of those other fellas have had. And I agree with what you're saying, Ian, that there needs to be a bit of experience across the team. I just hope they can get that without playing people. And then, they spend the full first part of the week focused on that game when they could be focusing on Everton. 2 people who I think you definitely don't play is Joe Linton and Dan Burn, because they're both a yellow card away from a suspension, and it would be negligent if they played in that game, left a late tackle in, and they got suspended for Barcelona or Chelsea in the next round. So it could be I mean, could be hoping that Botman's available to play for a centre half because Chow's suspended. But I think overall, I would agree with Shahar being the standout because we need cover at fullback. We need somebody to fill in there when we get these injuries. That because Kieran Trippier has been flogged, Dan Burns not a left back, and we need to have a look at him to see if he's up to that job, especially if Livermore was potentially off in the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, City are the team that are massively in for him. And to be honest, who can blame them? If he was still fit, I think he'd probably already. Well, if he could stay fit, should I say, they'd probably have already come in with a bid. So that's an interesting one. There, Tim. What about you? Who do you want to see?
Jamie's took the words out of my mouth there, really, at the end with Shahar, because we need a viable alternative to Trippier, who has been outstanding the last 3 games, but obviously he's 35, so you would have thought anyway he can't keep this up. So it is the perfect time to see if Shahar can step in as and when. But by the same token, the same applies to Alex Murphy and Lewis Hall, and also Malik Chow as well, or even Dan Burn. So because Alex Murphy can play centre back and left back, so I think we need to make sure that we have that cover in those areas. So I think either of those two, to be honest, because in the forward positions, it'd be really nice to see Park Susung, but obviously we're doing a bit better in those forward positions right now. So it's mainly those defenders that I want to see given a run out, but also they do need to play these youngsters with good players as well. So they are developing, in the game with experienced heads around them. Because like you say, can you imagine if it is kind of like a lot of fringe players with all youngsters and we go 2-0 down, 3-0 down, that's not a great experience for them, is it? And then we'll have to bring them off and get the seniors on. So it's getting that balance, but I think we have to be just clever about it. And maybe, like I say, you can do some in the first half and then some in the second half, so it's spread across. But certainly we need to do something along those lines.
Yeah, 100%. It seems like the list.
If you
Go on in.
Hey, Michael, I was going to ask, following up what someone had just said then, if we rest Trippier, because he needs it, and he's an old man, let's face it, all us old men relish a rest. And then we don't want to play Dan Burn because we don't want him to get booked and be suspended for playing the first leg of the quarter-final. Who's captain? Is it Miley? Does Miley start as captain?
That's an interesting one, isn't it?
That's if Miley's fit.
Would it be Nick Pope? And if Ramsdale plays? It's a nightmare scenario, isn't it?
Mali would be good.
Hardly a nightmare scenario, but
no, Mali would be good because that's an example to the other youngsters. It's saying to the other youngsters, look what you could become,
I think, who I think it would be? I think it would be Jacob Murphy. I think you'd play him.
Yes, I was going to say that.
Good show.
My God.
Yeah, because he's just basically took over from Lascelles, hasn't he? Yeah. In that leadership team. Great show.
Just incidentally, I was interested with Tim saying how Trips has been in great form over the past 3 games. Do you think that has coincided with the fact that we've gone back to the high press? Because I do.
Yeah, I agree. I think,
albeit he's been caught upfield a couple of times, but that far better suits his game than all the pendulum ticky-tacky stuff that we've been trying to change into. He knows exactly what his job is then, and he's doing it great. But it's because we're back to doing what he does best, what the team does best, etc., etc.
Yeah. I think I'm just surprised he's got the energy from somewhere to actually pull off that press. To be honest with you, but no, I agree that does completely suit his game. So, and also as well, he's got the leadership to tell people what to do high up the pitch. Cover him, and set the tone verbally as well with the press that way. So, he's a legend, I reckon, Trippier for Newcastle. He's just been superb overall since he's came in.
He's in my Mount Rushmore.
Oh, that's a big statement. Maybe we should do a pod on that, to be honest. But we mentioned Trippier there, and you were saying that he's in good form. The Shields Gazette put something out today saying from his Brentford low point, he has rolled back the years with the taking the captaincy on from Bruno and his leadership. Even with his contract ticking down, he's been very, very good. And the rumours of his demise have been greatly exaggerated. Now, I will say, I think he's improved, but everyone around him has improved as well. And I mean, Ian, we've done the player ratings, and I don't think Trippier's been one of the higher marks in any of the games that we've had. So
He's done much better. He's done much better since I said his legs have completely gone, and obviously they're back from the holiday. They hadn't emigrated; they'd gone for a few weeks, and now he looks like he's got some legs back again. But he got sevens, didn't he? He's done all right the last few games, and I think it does coincide with us pressing a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. But the question I'm sort of wanting to ask is, rumours. The quote "rumours of his demise have been greatly exaggerated." I know we've improved and he has improved as well, but is that a little bit over the top? Because let's be honest, he was still getting caught out against Karabag. He has improved. The press does help him. I completely agree. But he's still the weak link for me in that team. Does anyone disagree with that, Win?
Is he as good as Livramento? No. Is he the best we've got? Definitely.
Yeah, I agree. At the minute, he is. Yeah.
So, is he the player he was 3 years ago? No. Just simply because of his legs. But he's still got all the technical skills. He's still got all the nous, and and the commitment and everything else that goes with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Still takes a good corner and a good free kick, for sure. That ball in for Chow in the second goal last night was gorgeous.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Completely.
Big
As
argument.
well, you look at
Is that a set piece goal or is it not a set piece goal?
It's not. It's from a cross.
Correct.
But it went down as a set piece goal, didn't it?
No. It didn't, because I checked to see whether it did or whether it didn't. Because it was the second phase, because it had been cleared back out to, and so it wasn't a direct result of the set piece.
I was going to say, I've seen plenty like that where they've been given as a set piece goal, and it irks me so much. So I'm glad to hear that one wasn't. But obviously we mentioned his leadership there, and Still Bad Dad says in the chat as well, Tripp's still very commanding on the pitch. He's a leader. We need that. And I think that was evident. That's been evident in the last few games. That's one thing I will say. Even against PSV as well, when he gave the armband to Louis Miley. Impromptu on the pitch. Great touch. The emotion of the situation, getting not the most of them, but sort of taking control and doing the right thing. But I think the leadership side of things, I would probably say the incident at Karabag, I know it's done in the past, the pretty nonsensical situation, let's be honest, but that's the kind of drama that I think an experienced leader needs to have out behind closed doors, you know, in the dressing room rather than out on the pitch itself. I mean, when you talk about corners and stuff like that, where they're discussing it, and not corners, free kicks, where they're discussing it over the ball, they already know what they're going to do, and it looks amateur, it looks frustrating. So with the penalty incident, you know, basically Gordon was going to take it 100%. If there's any gripes with it, particularly from a leader, should that kind of stuff be left in the dressing room, or is it just passion on the pitch? What do you think? You muted.
He's not making a noise.
It shouldn't have been shown on the pitch. That was the bit that was wrong. So, certainly not. Okay, at the incident itself, Trips could have gone to Gordon and said, you know, give it to Nick, and Gordon could have said no. And then they could have had whatever discussion they had walking off the pitch. They could have had once they got down the tunnel, instead of
I completely agree.
instead of making a public spectacle. That was poor.
I agree with that, Rice. I do agree with that. I think do it behind closed doors. But we're talking about this in the cold light of day. This is all happening on the pitch at the time. And as Geordie Dan says there, it's passion on the pitch. And at the end of the day, right, I think with Trippier, you know it's coming from the right place. Do you know what I mean? He's not doing it to cause,
Correct.
you know, like a fuss and to kind of be a troublemaker, if you like. He's doing it because he wants to keep that team ethos going. And he wants Nick to get on the score sheet, and he wants Anthony Gordon to kind of relent to that, if you like. And when Gordon's just shrugged him off, obviously Trippier's got annoyed. And again, yes, keep it behind closed doors, ideally, but it is coming from a good place with Trippier. And I think, again, honestly, I can only praise him. I think he's been better than a 7, personally, in the last few games. And I think, to come to your point, Michael, I think you will see the drop-off if he isn't rotated or rested, you know, which is why, obviously, it's so important Shaw comes in, because you will go back to the talk about Trippier being past it and his legs have gone, inevitably, if he plays all these games constantly. And it's kind of unfair on him in a way. So I think, yeah, Trippier, like, he's tenacious, he's passionate, he's got that drive, he barks out the orders. That is priceless. We cannot take that for granted. It is so important to have leaders like that.
I think it was reasonable as well, because like the order is he takes a penalty. That's the order from the bench. But when you've scored a hat-trick so early on and you get another one, it's an exceptional circumstance, and I think it's reasonable for him to go up and say, as you've already notched a hat-trick, why don't you let Nick take this one? But I think Gordon was well within his right to say, no, I'm taking it. And Trippier should have just walked away then.
Yeah. It's just the passion getting a bit too much with them in the moment. And to be honest, if they weren't getting passionate on the pitch, I'd probably be a little bit annoyed with them. So to see it when we're 4-0 up or something at the time, it's actually probably a positive thing. But Wyn, I've seen you've got something lined up. What is this?
All right. Jesus.
That's my Mount Rushmore.
Right, so we've got Robson Green.
First of all, who do you think they are?
Well, I know who the third bloke along is. He stands on the roundabout at Wilton Key with a carrier bag round his foot, shouting abuse at cars.
Hey, that's my dad.
That's Killer Kilclane.
Aye. Is that meant to be Trippier? No, right.
I've got Shearer, Killer, and Trips in for the effect that they actually had on the club when they came in as players. Kevin isn't there because as a player, he got promoted, but it was as a manager that Kevin made it. And who do you think the second one is?
I'm racking my
Is
brains.
that George Robledo?
No, he's our modern era.
Is it? Well, whoever it is, it doesn't bloody look like him. Lauren
It doesn't look like him.
It's
No.
not very good. It
just again, for the benefit of radio listeners, Derek has thrown up a Mount Rushmore mock-up with 4 random blokes on it that look like characters from the Beano. And
Definitely is Robson Green, the first one.
and they are Alan Shearer, Killican Klein, Kieran Trippier, and I've just got my personal favourite almost of all time in there, which is
Lynn Davis.
Lauren Robbie.
That's supposed to be Lauren Robbie.
That's supposed to be Lauren Robbie. Yeah, it's not very good.
Jesus.
Shit, I mean, it'll be fair.
But it is a show in itself. I just think for what they did for the club.
Robert was one of my favourite players of all time, can't lie.
Good spells.
Yeah, absolutely. Robert, one of my favourite of all time. Obviously, Shearer, absolute legend. So, can't blame you for putting, maybe many of those on. But Trippier, to be on there. That is a mighty compliment. More like Robert Lawrence, as someone's put in the chat. Absolutely. But yeah, if you try and create your own AI Mount Rushmores at home, it probably won't look very good. But on to someone, you know what, we mentioned Anthony Gordon, and it's someone that's been talked about quite a lot in the news at the moment, in the chat as well. In the post-match of Karabag, he was saying him as well, maybe for worse reasons.
He opened the stadium alight, you know. They're never far from the mother.
It's not, well, it is still the worst thing he's ever done. But yeah, Anthony Gordon said after Karabag he loves playing the 9. It felt like it worked for him without the goals. Personally, some don't agree as much as what the article says, but picked up 4 in Baku. He's got 10 Champions League goals. Now, do Newcastle look their best when Anthony Gordon is playing up front, particularly with Nick Woltemade behind him? What do you think, Win? I know you're a big supporter of Gordon.
Yeah, well, we discussed that in the earlier show, of course, and yeah, I think it's made a massive difference. We're having somebody mobile up front. Even like I said, even against Villa when he put Asula there, at least he moves. He takes it's not easy to mark when Nick's in the box as the top man. He's far too easy to mark. How many times have we seen him with 2 central defenders, sometimes even 3 around him? Because he doesn't move. Brilliant if he gets the ball and gets a chance, but it's a lot harder for him because he's got 2 or 3 men on him. And the other thing that the movement does is it creates space for everybody else.
Yeah, 100%. Ian, what do you think? Do you think Newcastle are better at the moment with Gordon in that central striker role?
Certainly think the last 3 games, with all that pace up front, whether it's Gordon or Sula, have looked a lot more dangerous. Gordon's got his eye in, hasn't he? Gordon's on a bit of a run. And running in behind really upset Liverpool. Not for the whole game, sadly.
Yeah, people.
I still remember that first half hour against Liverpool. That's
great.
That was good.
Yeah,
we've got to do something different, haven't we, against City? We've got to unsettle them. And I hear what Jamie's saying. We never win there. We don't ever win there. But other teams win and draw at Manchester City this year. So that if we can give them a good game, with a bit of, what's the word? Well, if we can be clinical in front of goal, we could get something. I fancy it. I fancied us to beat Villa, if you remember, and nobody else believed me. So I fancy us to do City as well.
I think Wynn believed you.
Yeah,
I didn't.
Everybody thought we were going to get.
He was drunk though, so come on.
No wrong with being drunk.
Right, we'll keep moving swiftly on. Tim, what do you think about the number 9? Is Gordon probably the best option at number 9 now, or do you think there's better options there?
I think he probably is, and I was sceptical about it after seeing it a number of times this season. And there's that talk of Einstein, isn't there, doing the same thing and expecting different results, where Gordon, he had his chances in front of goal, he wasn't taking them. And everyone said, look, he's not a striker, why play him there? But again, to give Eddie Howe credit, he stuck his neck on the line and said, no, I believe that this is the right move for the team and for the system. To be fair to Peter on the show, when I was doing the show with him, he did say that. Yeah, exactly. I'll give him credit. Like he was more open to it, and he kind of said before the team sheet was out that he'd be thinking about Gordon up front after the Liverpool game, where you do have that more fluid movement. And it's like I say, it's through a spanner in the works now, I think, because it probably does look like the best way forward. And he's obviously scoring now as well. Obviously the penalties were penalties, but from open play too. So yeah, I think we need to. I think Eddie Howe wants to try and regain that press and regain that fluid style that we had with Isaac. Now, obviously, there's criticisms that you would have that with Woltemade. Why not adjust the system when he was up front to have the wingers more inverted, for example, and running beyond him more, so he's isolated. So I think that's a valid criticism. But if Eddie Howe wants to play the same sort of formation, then I think this is the right way. And with Woltemade, obviously he is deeper. He's actually in midfield, really. He's more of an 8 from what I can see, which is kind of unconventional in one way, but it's a bit like the Joe Linton move in another way. So I think to get the best out of both those players, I think it is the way forward for now, yes.
Well, I completely agree, to be honest. What about you, Jamie? What do you think? Gordon the best choice up top for now?
It depends on how the opposition play, because I think the crap with Karabag was there'd been a lot of goal involvement in their game. They were a bit Kevin Keegan, the fly forward and leave themselves exposed at the back. So pace was the answer there. And I have to take issue with the fact that Mr. Platten there has not once mentioned that I came on Monday night or Tuesday night and said, I think you'll play Gordon up front and Alanga on the right-hand side. And you all called us everything in the farmyard, didn't you, at the time, saying that would be wrong. But I think it's the right thing to do with City as well, because they're going to come out, they're going to play proper football against us, and probably the best thing to do is to counter-attack them. But long term, we've spent all that money on strikers, and I think Woltemade needs to play with somebody.
Yeah, I agree.
I wouldn't say it's a long-term answer. He's a wide man, is Gordon.
Yeah, to be honest, I completely agree. Yeah, long term, and Cuff completely agrees in the chat as well. Gordon is our best option up top in the short term. Long term, though, we have to find a way to get Woltemade into our system. The kid's a gem. Yeah, and I think that's the one that I think everyone was more concerned about at the start of the season, just when, Woltemade wasn't, well, I say start of the season, middle of the season, where Woltemade wasn't really, getting any service. It wasn't really getting on the ball, and, it looked like the complete wrong player that had been signed, but in the system that we play now, he looks pretty decent. But from... Well,
I think what happened at the start of the season when he came in was that his goals were overshadowing the general play of the team. There was a remarkable stat that he had 5 shots on target and scored 5 goals. Well, that is absolutely unsustainable.
Yeah.
You've got to, strikers have to miss chances to score goals. And if you're not missing chances, it means you're not doing it. Whereas Wissa's been the opposite. He's missed loads of chances, but at least he's been there to miss them. So you can argue which you want. Well, I think I would argue I'd rather have Wissa, because he's getting into positions to get the chances, and sooner or later, when his fitness comes good, whatever, that will change. If you were missing that many great opportunities, as he has done, sooner or later you'll stop missing them. And when you start scoring, your confidence builds and all the rest that goes with that. So,
having said that, can I ask, would you be looking to buy another striker in the summer to rotate with Wissa and Woltemade plays off them?
Yeah.
Or would you just look elsewhere in the team?
No, I would definitely be... okay, let's see what... I'm not a great Sean Neve lover from what I've seen. But if he can... Certainly Eddie seems to rate him. So, he might be the answer eventually. But I would still certainly be looking for another striker. You've got to have 3
Completely
strikers.
agree. Yeah, particularly with,
loan. Sean Neve. I would say.
Send him out.
We've got 3 now, though. We've got that means you're going to get rid of Asula, presumably.
Yeah, I think if I could get 30 million for Asula, I would bite anybody's hands up who's willing to pay it. But be smart about it. Be smart about it. Stick
Michael
him.
and I think he's a right winger. not a centre forward.
Yeah, he's looked better on the right wing. He did against Karabag when he moved out there. Completely anonymous when he was playing up top, and then when he moved to the right, gets on the ball, looks half decent. But I completely agree with Win. If you get 30 million for him, it's double what we paid, and I'd take that.
And a buyout, a sell-on clause or a buyback clause, whatever. The way Man City do it.
Yeah, exactly. I think
if he does come good, great, making money.
Yeah, I think if you do that, you can't sell him to Aston Villa. It would probably have to be more Frankfurt, etc. But at the same time, it's an option that we have, and it's a sellable asset that, let's be honest, Wissa's not going to get you 30 million anymore, is he? After the start of the season.
So how's about this? This is what I'm talking about, being smart. How's about we're in the situation with Liverpool where they said to us, if you don't sell us Isaac, we're going to go and get Ekitike. So we'll say to Aston Villa, we'll sell you Asula, but we get Trafford. If that's what the club want, and be smart about it, to have somebody in position who can broker that sort of deal.
Yeah, definitely a possibility. Ian, I know you're a big fan of Asula, but if someone came in 30 million, would you be tempted to sell?
I can see the benefit of selling. He has been there 2 years, hasn't he? And he still looks like he needs a compass and a map to know which way he's going to run towards the opposition goal. It's chaos. Chaos works sometimes. I like him coming on as the last 15 minutes, 20 minutes. He does shake things up. But yeah, he's not a rotational forward. I want to get to the point where our squad nobody knows what the first choice 11 is. Do you know what I mean? There need to be enough substitutions in that squad for us to do like Arsenal and City do, where the 11 that come out, that's their first team. No one says it's a weakened team because they've got such a good squad, but they can move players around. And
there's always a debate.
I don't know if Doku a first teamer for Manchester City or not. He doesn't play it all the time. Is Foden first teamer? Do you know what I mean?
It's always an option.
If you're talking about Asula playing right wing, who would you rather have, Asula as a potential winger or Doku? Because they're both going for the same sort of money.
Doku.
Yeah, Doku 100%.
By the way, Davey boy, I've never slagged Sean Nevo. I just, I don't think he's proven to me that he's the business yet, shall we say.
He's not had a chance though, has he?
Nah, he is only 18 as well, to be fair. I know I've said that the youngsters aren't good enough, but... Sorry, Ian.
He's had 6 minutes, 3 touches, created one big chance.
Yeah, he
was very close to scoring. That's a good record.
Well, I'm saying did great. He missed his big opportunity, of course.
They need to start getting loans right, don't they? Get them to the Championship. Get them to the Championship to a team that'll promise they'll play him every week. That needs to play him every week, and if you can cut it there, be the making of him.
Yeah, absolutely. Tim, what do you reckon?
I think we've all agreed that one of Ross Wilson's first job should be to sadly get rid of Shola and get somebody in who knows what they're doing.
Well, Shola doesn't pick the loan destination, he just looks after them while they're on loan.
I think he chooses, I think he scouts them out and stuff, though, for the culture of the club and stuff, doesn't he? So he goes over there to make sure the fits and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, he looks after the young ones, but it's a team decision where they go on loan.
Oh, right.
Tim, what do you reckon about Asula? Do you reckon it's time for it to sell up, or do you reckon he's still got a future here?
I think it'd be hard to turn down 30 million for him. I think there's something there, and it is interesting that Aston Villa want him, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like, Unai Emery wouldn't want a dud, would he? So there's something there, but I think realistically, is he going to develop and become that player like you say, Ian, who we can rely on to give us that quality where we don't miss whoever's up front, who's starting, or he can be our main striker. I've got doubts. Like you say, it's a train track thing, isn't it? Up and down. I think he still looks quite raw. I agree, he looks a better right winger than he does centre forwards. But I think I would be looking to sell him, really, if we can get that sort of money. But obviously, it's important that we do invest the money in a really good striker or two. I think, with the loans, I think it is important that we do send players out like Neve, where we know they are going to play. It's easy saying that, I grant you, because the team he goes to might hit bad form and the manager might want to change things around. You can't legislate for things like that all the time, but surely you can get a good understanding that the player, unless it goes terribly wrong, that player will more than likely play a lot of games. So it's important we do that with the likes of Neve, and then we can see what they're like. But I agree with Neve, he looked good when he came on, definitely. I was quite surprised, actually, that he outmuscled them at times, didn't he? It was only a short spell, but yeah, let's see more of him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the first things I remember seeing of Joe Linton was him being shrugged off the ball by a player in the box. I'm not sure. I don't think it was the same player that was shrugged off by Neve. So, but it shows. There is the physicality still there in the game. Neve came on, looked pretty decent, but continued to talk about strikers. Obviously, the main man about town being spoken about, and some say he's a striker, some say he's a number 10. Is big Nick Woltemade. Now, apparently, he's not happy, but there's contrasting articles saying, he's not happy, he is happy, he's fine. No one really knows, but what we do know...
I disagree. There's not an article saying he's not happy. The article saying he's not happy was a joke letter written in a German magazine called Bild. It was written by a satirical writer who was writing a fake letter to Harry Kane. He said Kane's banging in the goals compared to Germany's top striker, Woltemade, who'd love to come back to Munich or Stuttgart. And the BBC ran it as a serious story in their gossip column to get clicks. So there's not a story, I don't think, about him being unhappy. It came from satire that people have reported as fact, which is just modern news to a T.
Yeah.
But that's where it came from.
Yeah, 100%. I was going to say, everything that's come out from Woltemade has said, I'm in the right place. I'm happy here. And to be fair, the main thing is the whinging from Bayern Munich in the summer. The wine and the little children basically going on about how Newcastle have overspent for a player not good enough. It's all sort of set up to just say, we didn't want him in the first place. It's like when you ask someone out and they reject you, and all of a sudden it's, I didn't fancy you anyways. That's the sort of mentality that Bayern have put on there. And then I think just with Newcastle, is Woltemade kind of a victim of his own price tag? Because 69 million, I think some people would have expected him to come in and do more overall. Some would have expected him to do less. But I think you take the price tag out the equation, and I think he's actually been a decent enough signing for Newcastle. But what do you think? Is he a victim of the price tag, or do you think he hasn't quite delivered enough? What do you think, Win?
Well, if you take inflation into account, he's cost exactly the same as Isak cost. And he's got virtually the same numbers as Isak had his first season. So if he goes on to be another Isak, sorry for swearing, he'll do for me, thank you very much. I wanted him a couple of years back before he went to Stuttgart.
Yeah, that's the thing. I didn't really know too much about him, but it's one of those. The last year he's really come about, hasn't he? So, what do you think, Ian? Is he a victim of the price tag, or do you think he's done a decent job?
I think he's done a decent job. Matched Isak's goal tally in his first season already, I think. Has he not?
Yeah, he's played more minutes, but he's got a decent amount of goals.
Not a half bad midfield player thrown in for good measure. I think that's an extra string to his bow that we've got from that.
I like to wish he's not
I
made
think
of glass.
I think he's
It would
great.
appear.
He's a great character. I think he's excellent. I do agree with whoever it was, and Chris will be pleased we're saying this. He is a number 9. He says he is, and Eddie says he is. Bayern Munich think he is, and Germany think he is. Maybe this is what we'll do in that week off for the Everton game when we play the B team against Karabakh, that can work out a way of involving Woltemade when he's playing number 9. I think that's the only thing that we need is time to work with him to know how the rest of the team can fit in to play with him, because he did end up looking rather isolated, didn't he, when he was shoved up there on his own. And I know he improvised it in the first few games and scored some goals. As soon as the Premier League defences have seen what he's about, then he's easy to snuff out. Just standing up being a target man, which is virtually all we used him as. I think he's really put a camera on the pitch and playing where he's playing now against these teams. There's no idea what to get from him, which is good. But I do think long term he's centre forward, and he'll be an excellent centre forward. Bayern Munich aren't telling them, hang on and we'll come and get you next year to replace Harry Kane, if they haven't seen that he's a potentially elite centre forward, and we must be able to unlock. Eddie has improved so many players; he must be able to unlock that.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's a fantastic player on paper. There's definitely talents there that are very, very clear to see. Jamie, do you think it's important that Newcastle sort of alter the way continue to alter the way we play to fit Woltemade? Because we mentioned start of the season, we weren't playing to his strengths at all. Now we're doing so a lot more. Can you see that happening even more going forward? Because we're still not completely playing to his strengths.
I think he maybe would work best as part of a front two, but he cannot be the furthest player forward because his natural instinct is to drop back and pick the ball up, isn't it? I think sometimes he's a bit of a victim of the way he looks because he's so big. People think, he should be in the box getting on the end of stuff, and he's got quick feet and nice little touches and stuff, and I think he's a second striker. And as long as he's playing in a forward role and as long as he's given rein to get in the box, he'll stay in the Germany team. But because he's had that great season with the under-21s, because of the price tag, like you say, the great tournament for the under-21s, the price tag, the Bayern Munich thing, the fact he's basically Isak's replacement, or looks to be, there has been pressure on him, and he's a young lad, adapted well to the Premier League, I think. I think you'd give him a solid C, solid 7 out of 10 so far. And, after the Villa goal, he's maybe due a good run towards the end of the season. And then when you have a pre-season with him, I think he's going to be fantastic next year. They just need to figure out how they're going to put the team out, how he fits into it when they play counter-attack, and how he fits into it when they play on the front foot with 2 up front, with 3 up front and everything. And they need to get that spot on across the summer. And I think they will. I trust them to. It'll be a long-term success.
Yeah, to be honest, he is the one that, you look at the squad and he has got the most chance of being that long-term success. Him and Ramsey, I think, completely two that were, written off at some stages, particularly Ramsey, and I think they both look really, really solid. Tim, what are your thoughts?
I think if Woltemade is playing up front, then I agree that we need to adjust the tactics. And if he's the furthest forward, then you need runners around him. And that means that our wingers, for example, would need to be closer to him and not stay as wide. So that means it's a change of system, isn't it? And Eddie Howe is being reluctant to do that at times. So I do think it's a combination of things happen with Woltemade, in that I think he's been misused at times, but also I think he's found it difficult to adjust to the Premier League's physicality. But at the same time, he's been brilliant in some games. So it's been mixed in that way, I think. But there's clearly a massive talent there. And it's going to be interesting going forward. I think one player that comes to mind for me is Berbatov. And I think it's quite similar to him. But when you think back to Berbatov, he had Robbie Keane ahead of him, running off him. So I think, like you say, Jamie, about being 2 strikers up front, I agree that probably is his best position. I mean, right now he's
Fernando Berbatov.
Kev goes.
I think that's a brilliant analogy, Tim, by the way. Big hand for that. I think that's a player he's very like.
Yeah, and Spurs didn't have him on his own, chasing lost causes, did they? They had runners like Aaron Lennon as well around him, I think. So I think with the system, like I say, Woltemade recently, he is playing very deep. He's not, I wouldn't say it's a usual number 10. He's playing deeper than that. When you look yesterday, you look at the three midfield, he was in a line with them. And yes, when we get the ball, obviously, then he's joining in. But it's going to be interesting to see how we'll follow through with this, with Woltemade. But like you said, Jamie, I think come the summer, we absolutely need to have a plan, a concrete plan in place where we know how we're going to play him and how we're going to get the best out of him, because he's a massive talent, like I said.
Yeah, 100%. I've said for most of the season, it feels a bit more like a transitional season after losing Isak. Some could say unexpectedly, some will say you must have known for a couple of months. Whatever your thoughts are actually on that, it does feel a little bit transitional with the key players that we've brought in and them starting to come good at this stage of the season. Woltemade obviously is the big one. I think obviously you look at Wissa, you would have expected him to hit the ground running. That knee injury, I think it was that he picked up with Senegal, seems to have impacted his pace a little bit, and unfortunately that looks like a transfer that's not going to work out for Newcastle. So that just puts even more pressure on the big German, and someone who I think is starting to come under a little bit of criticism recently with his performances is Harvey Barnes, who, if you're even at the start of the year, Bournemouth, Leeds, a lot of people were saying you can't take him out of that side, but it's quite a few games without a goal. Got an assist technically against Qarabağ for the Jacob Murphy goal, but let's be honest, it doesn't really count. But in the time that obviously Anthony Gordon got 4 against Qarabağ, that XG was 3.36, so he was expected to. But since Harvey Barnes' last goal, obviously there's the sitters against Aston Villa, Paris Saint-Germain in there as well, and he had a number of good chances against Qarabağ that he just couldn't seem to put away. And I've seen a lot of people say that if Barnes doesn't score, he doesn't really seem to do much else for us. And I'm seeing a lot of more people criticising him. But Win, what do you think? Is Barnes still one of the first names on the team sheet? I know Chris certainly thinks so. Not Senegal, Congo. What do you think, Win? Is he one of the first names on the team sheet?
Harvey Barnes, I think he's done enough. If we're looking at putting out what your strongest team, I think Harvey Barnes has certainly done enough this season to be in there, albeit probably unless Gordon's up top, probably on the right wing.
Yeah, 100%. And just remembering that it was Senegal that Congo were playing when Wissa picked up the injury. That's my bad there. But Tim, what do you think? Is Harvey Barnes' form becoming a little bit of a concern there?
It is a little bit. I mean, I'm a big fan of Barnes, but I will say that, yes, I think he's been below par a little bit in the last few games in terms of, that finishing touch that you would expect from him in the positions he gets into. So, yeah, I think that's a fair criticism. I mean, I would say it's a bit harsh to say he offers nothing, because I think his link-up play has been quite good. With Lewis Hall as well, he links up quite well with Hall, I think, down the left. And one caveat I would throw out there is that when he was scoring, against Leeds and others, and he was in his stride, he was still put out to the right in amongst that purple patch, if you like. And I think, it's probably kind of clutching a little bit of straws, but I don't think it's great for his momentum to be shunted out to the right when he's in that flow. And then it kind of stagnates a little bit, and then obviously he goes back over at some point, and he's kind of having to gather that momentum back a little bit. It sounds piggy, I'll grant you that, but I would have kept him on the left completely, personally, if it was me.
Yeah. What do you think, Jamie? Is Barnes' form a little bit of a concern, or do you still see enough to keep him in the side?
Yeah, it's. I mean, you have to wonder what would have done to Karabag if Barnes and Elanga hadn't both been off it last night. It might have been double figures. So, but it's like Derek said. You get in the positions to miss, don't you? And with him, he's always getting in those positions. I think it's like he's got what you call dartitis. I don't know. Some of you lads will remember the old darts champion Eric Bristow. He got dartitis when he couldn't let go of the dart in time. It was an actual thing. And it's like Harvey Barnes is like that. We're getting his shot off at the minute. He just keeps kind of walking around the box with it. And you're thinking, shoot, man, shoot. And the only time he shoots is when there's somebody stood bang in front of him. So I think it's short term. I think it's very, very harsh to dig him out, to dig anybody out. And we've had 3 good results. But he's contributed a lot this season. And you know what? You're allowed a few off games. It's the way of the modern world, isn't it? You know, 1 minute you're the cock of the walk, the next you're a feather duster, and
hero to zero.
Yeah. And you wouldn't be shocked if he scored a couple at Man City tomorrow, as he did in a home game against them. So I think, he still deserves his place in the setup.
Yeah, absolutely. To be honest, I'm not sure there's many players out there who I would trust in his place, particularly in Newcastle's lineup at the minute. But Ian, final one on Harvey Barnes. Is the form starting to become a little bit of a concern?
He's dropped off a little bit, but he's not got to where he's not producing anything. With a different goalkeeper in last night, because the Karabakh goalkeeper played out of his skin, Barnes could have had the hat-trick before half-time as well. I don't think he fluffed any of his chances. I think 2 or 3 of them were really well saved. Also, if Gordon is the man who's playing up front, which it looks like it might be for most of these few games coming up, who else plays down the left? There's only Barnes. I can't think of anyone else who might want to play on wide. Will it maybe? But we need him in midfield, don't we? So I think Harvey Barnes has still got another game or 2 before we write him off, say he needs a rest. I mean, he has played a lot of football. Maybe he is showing he's a bit tired. I don't know. I think it's disappointing when he doesn't score, because he's measured by his goals, isn't he? As I say, with the different bounce of the ball last night, he might have had 3.
Yeah, definitely a potential. Just one in the chat there. I noticed a calm, well-run summer transfer window would be a bigger achievement than any single signing. It would show the club is finally maturing and evolving. Yeah, I completely agree.
I don't often agree with Kim Cam, but I agree with her.
Yeah, 100%. And I'd love a transfer window where, well, not like the last one, where it feels like we're linked with, I know we're always going to be linked with a new player every single day. That's the way the media is. But Newcastle in Francesco, João Pedro, Delap, and then they all end up elsewhere. I can't have another summer like that, personally. So I'll take a quiet one where we get the business done. Well, actually, I'll take anything I get and I'll be happy with it. Let's be honest. That's the way it's kind of got to work as football fans. We get with cake and we eat it whether we like it or not. But just to finish off, obviously we've got Man City at the weekend. Another lads and Christina talked a little bit about it earlier. Tim, I'll start with you. I know you're going to be on the pre-show, but how are you feeling for it? And give me an early prediction before we even have the presser tomorrow.
I am looking forward to it, and I think we'll turn up to give a performance. Whether it's enough, the chances are it won't be, because they're so good if they themselves turn up, Man City. So, to be honest, I'll say 1-1 for the score.
A positive result at the Etihad. We don't see many of them. Jamie, what about you? You feeling confident?
No, I'll go back to what I said at the start, where I think Eddie should and will use it as a sort of scouting exercise and keep his cards close to his chest for the FA Cup. So I think it'll be a bit of a stranger team selection, a bit of a kind of, they won't get at them as much, and I think City will do us 2-0. Sorry.
To be honest, it's very realistic, isn't it? Let's be honest, the way we are at City. Ian, are you hopeful?
I get what Jamie's saying, but I think it's two totally different games. Away at the Etihad or at home at St James's Park. I don't think Guardiola's going to be expecting us to play the same at both places. So I'll be looking for some sort of PSG type performance. And I've got the same feeling I had before the Villa game. To be fair, City at the Etihad is no more difficult than Villa at Villa Park. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 win for Newcastle.
Wow, a 3-1 win for Newcastle at the Etihad. And the Etihad is no harder than Villa Park. Get that on a headline.
It's not.
Well, I'm not going to be that confident, but I am quietly confident. First of all, how often, when the Toon are completely written off, do we produce a performance and get a result? Regularly is the answer you're all looking for.
Fair.
And especially with Arsenal having dropped points yesterday, so now City know it's in their own hands. So all of a sudden, the pressure's on more now for them than it has been when they've had a 7 point, 8 point, 9 point gap to make up, and the kind of written the title off. Now it's back in that tracks, and you can argue that historically, when that's the case, Man City produced the goods. But it's still an increased psychological pressure that I hope we can take advantage of. And I hope we get a referee like Kavanagh on Saturday working for us. And I am going to go 2-1 to 2.
2-1 the Toon. So mainly...
Am I the only one who's gone for City then?
I was about to join you, I'll be honest.
Michael will, don't worry.
Ian's known me long enough to go, I was going to go with City.
Go on then, Michael. What are you going with?
I was going to join you, to be honest, with the City win. I think it'd be 2-0 as well. I don't think we score, and I think City are very, very professional this stage of the season. But I love the fact that we've got so many different thoughts. We've got a draw in there, 2 losses, 2 wins. A few weeks ago, it would have been 5-0 City all over. So, you know what? I'm happy with that. There's a little bit of difference. And with that, that is tonight's show. Thank yous for tuning in to the late night show. Thank you to the mighty Win, Super Mac, Tim and Jamie joining me this afternoon. Well, this evening, should I say. A few boos in there from Christina to finish things off. But thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you next time.
Away the lads.
Lasses and bears.